hmm
3, 2, 1, and we're live. So, welcome everybody. This is the second episode of the Glamour Prism podcast. I have a couple of guests here with me from the community. I have with me today, I have Katarh Mest from the XIV Fashion Tumblr on Tumblr, and then she's also a judge, been a judge with us for a long time in ENTM. And we also have with us our Cycle 10 winner, Haila Wetyios from, what server are you from, Haila? Okay, and Katarh?
I'm from Lamia server.
All right. We have a pretty packed show today. We're going to be talking about the Cycle 10 results with Haila, and we're also going to be going over some of the news coming out of Fanfest and just getting everybody's reactions to that. So it should be pretty exciting. We have a lot of stuff lined up today. So let's get right into it. So if you guys just want to introduce yourselves a little bit to the community and let everybody know who you guys are, and we'll kick it off from there. So why don't you go ahead and go first, Katarh? Just tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I have been playing Final Fantasy XIV since 1.23b. My best friend in the world actually played 1.0 when it was a very crappy game and got her parents involved in it and managed to convince me to join when it started to not be so bad. So I played all through 1.23b up until the day the servers went down, and then I was an alpha tester for 2.0. Prior to that, I played FF11 for about a decade, and I ran No Sephiroth Dynamis, and partly responsible for FFDKP, if anybody ever used that particular thing before Guildworks came out. And in 14, I changed from a Tartar like I was in 11 over to a cat girl in Mikode, just because I was tired of not being able to see any of my gear. And, and as a result, I started to roleplay. My character is fashion obsessed, and I began to reblog way too many screenshots to my Tumblr, and all my actual guild mates complained. And so I started 14 Fashion as a side blog just to kind of dump everything there. And that really took off. I have over 4,000 followers somehow. I'm not quite sure how that happened.
And that's
then,
if I just want to ask, that's that Tumblr is not just your own screenshots; it's screenshots from around the community, correct?
right. I did that just to highlight other screenshots that other people take and other people's glamours. I focus on edits, but not mods, because the idea is it's in-game fashion that your characters can wear and cool screenshots that you can take, and some of the edits that people can do, but I made the decision a while ago I wouldn't showcase any mods because you can't actually get that in the game. So anybody who is on PlayStation 4, anything that you see on 14 Fashion Tumblr is something that you can build as a glamour for yourself in the game.
Very nice, very nice. I wasn't aware of that. I haven't downloaded any mods myself, but yeah, it's probably a good idea to, um, stay away from those just for like social media purposes. If people want to get into the game, you don't want to be showing off things that they won't be able to access normally. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's not to knock against the mod community. Some of the work that they have done is incredible. It's just that I decided to not make that the focus of that particular blog. And there's not like there's a shortage of Instagrams or other blogs out there showcasing all the mods that people can wear. As for ENTM, I was a model in Cycle 4, and I lost. And in Cycle 6, and I lost. But it was around Cycle 4 that Rongi Pongi invited me to be a judge for the second YouTube cycle. That was voice acting, so everybody got to hear my mellifluous voice back then. And it was actually the first time I judged the Cycle 9 winner, Rena, was back in YouTube too. And I like modeling and I like judging both. I seem to be a lot better at judging. And that's why when Kai decided to retire from hosting Tumblr cycles, she asked me to take over. Well, she asked anybody who would possibly take over, and I said, well, if nobody else will do it, I'll do it, because I didn't want to see ENTM die. And I'm really glad that I did that, because that was about the time Rongi Pongi went offline. He was offline for about 6 months. His computer blew up. And then his boyfriend was in a pretty bad accident, so he just didn't have any time to devote to ENTM. And because I had salvaged Cycle 9 from the ashes, we were able to keep it going until he was able to return and boot up YouTube 3 finally.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, it's the community's been going for a long time. Like I mentioned in the last podcast that it's been going since the days of 2.0. So originally it was on the official forums, and now it's evolved to like Tumblr and YouTube and even Instagram, and we have multiple other communities that have joined us as well in partnership. So it's the community is getting pretty big now. Started out pretty small, but things are starting to pick up, I'd say, and especially like I would attribute that to the success of the glamour and fashion community as a whole. So a lot of people think that the fashion community is not really that big or that expansive, but in my opinion, at least, I think it's probably um, probably even bigger than, say, like the raiding community, because not everybody does raid, but everybody can take screenshots and everybody can build glamours and do housing and things like that. So I don't know. I don't have any facts to back that up, but that's just kind of my feeling. So
I would actually agree. The rating community, the hardcore rating community, is estimated to be 5 to 10% of the player base at best. But everybody can take screenshots, even if they're on PS4. That's one reason for Tumblr Cycle. We also don't permit not only mods, but we don't permit edits as well, so that anybody who is on PlayStation 4 can play without having to compete with anybody who's on PC.
Yep. Yeah, and I sometimes characterize our community as glamour PvP. I don't know if you would agree with that or not. So, anyways, so Haila, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
All right. This is Haila Wetyios. I've been playing the game around since beta phase 3 of A Realm Reborn. Ever since I've been around at the communities for quite a while, mostly on Tumblr, I've been seeing the rise and fall of many organizations, free companies, groups, roleplay. What else? I'm from Nicaragua, so sometimes that makes me stand out a little bit in certain situations, like time-wise, culture, etc., etc.
That's interesting.
Uh,
I was kind of getting like a French accent from your voice, but
yeah,
I wasn't expecting that. But that's cool though. Like I always love to see people from around the world as being a part of the community. So
yeah. A lot of people tend to confuse my accent. They're like, "Oh, is that Middle East? Is that Russian? Is that Mexican?" So it's always something interesting to see
I
or
love your
to
accent, by
hear
the way.
people's reactions about it. And what else? I actually took notice of ENTM probably since Cycle 5 on Tumblr, but I never really got into it or signed up for the auditions. I would just see the rounds are up, voting is up, and I would be like, hey, these guys need attention. They have a good idea. And so I would just help share things, but I didn't think too much of it until Cycle 9 when I finally saw the auditions. I was like, okay, I should take my screenshots and throw them into the auditions just for the sake of it. I've been working with it some time now.
So what made you finally decide to actually enter the competition yourself?
I think it was a sort of a leap of faith because I'm the kind of person that just stays away from things. I just watch in silence for a while until I think I got something down. So when I saw at last day auditions are up, and I was like, okay, I stay away from things too much. I might as well throw myself into something that I know I can do and see if I can win or something.
Yeah,
See,
it was very similar for me as well. You know, I kind of just watched, you know, from the sidelines for a long time, and finally decided to enter the competition. And it was my first time as well, and ended up winning as well. So, you know, that's one thing I would say to people that maybe you're just kind of spectating. That, you know, why not just give it a try? Because you never know. You may have something. You may find yourself you know, being the next top model, you know, so why not try it?
I would like to comment on both of your experiences. What I found is that those who have either entered multiple times or who have been watching the competition for a while do tend to do the best. It was really interesting in Cycle 10 because we did have a new person come in second and third, but we also had a lot of new blood in general. So those folks actually improved a lot over the course of the competition, whereas Haila was good from the get-go. So that was kind of interesting to see. But yeah, if you have been just watching the screenshots come through, the competition come through, and you've been thinking about entering, then go for it. Everybody is super friendly. We're not going to judge you. Rongi Pongi tries to not use the word bad. Screenshots are either strong or they're weak. They're not bad or good because I mean we're all Final Fantasy characters. We're models just from the fact that we're playing this game. So your character is never going to look bad. It just comes down to the different elements of the screenshot and whether you adhere to the theme or not. But if you've been thinking about it, go ahead and just watch a cycle, see how it plays out, read the critiques from all the judges, and then go ahead and enter the next time we open up the competition. And you might just win.
Definitely, definitely. You know, and I would just comment as well that you know, it is a competition, but it's not just to see, you know, if you can win. It's also to see how much you can learn and improve when you're with your screenshots and glamours and things as well. Because a lot of one of the things I learned when I was doing the cycle 8 was, you know, a lot of people um, they do things that you probably wouldn't have thought of yourself, you know, and that kind of improves your creativity level a little bit, and also the different themes with the cycles as well. That sort of forces you to think outside of your comfort zone a little bit and do things that you may not have otherwise thought to do. So that was something that I thought was you know, pretty you know, eye opening for me. So so again, it's not just about trying to win. It's about trying to grow and learn as well. So um, so and building on from that, you know, you do meet a lot of people and you make a lot of friends and stuff along the way. So I was wondering, Hyla, if you experienced that as well. Do you think you made a lot of friends in the community when you joined the competition?
well, in this case, I think I didn't end up as close as some of the other people in the group or for this cycle, but I feel like I did at least join them and get to see how much of a blast they were having near the end because it started as this group having a little bit of confidence issues. They were not sure of themselves, and then through each round, each time, I saw them grow and I saw them starting to support each other. And then slowly, I started to get into keeping track of the conversations and even talking myself a few times. I probably did not do the best to like be a good friend to all of them, but at least I was glad that I met.
Right. So, I mean, and that's another thing too. Like you may think that you come into the competition and you join the Discord to just, do the competition, and once it's over, you just leave. But at least in my experience, that I've found that once people join the community, a lot of times most of the models will usually stick around and be a part of the community at large and continue to follow the other cycles, or even continue to participate in future cycles as well. So I think it's not just a competition. It's really like I think of it more of a community these days.
Cycle 10, we kept the Discord channel up for them even after the competition was over, just because there's no reason to destroy it until we start up Cycle 11, which won't be till next year. And they nicknamed themselves Rongi Pongi's Best Friend Race.
Oh,
And I think Haila is right. Some of the members of Cycle 10 just they everybody had private meltdowns, but they kept it out of the main channel and kept that directly with me. And I'm really grateful for that because it kept the main channel from turning into a drama-filled sad fest. But instead, the channel, Cycle 10 channel, just remained a bastion of positivity and everybody cheering each other on. Once everybody got over their initial, I'm coming in to win, I'm going to be better than you, and also got over their hurt feelings when their first couple of rounds kind of fell flat. Then everybody just kind of settled down and realized, yeah, I'm probably not going to win, so I'm just going to have fun and make friends instead.
Right, right. So, and in making friends as well, you do find yourselves, facing pretty tough competition as well. So, do you think that you had a tough time in the competition, Hala, or do you think it was you just steamrolled everybody and it was no contest? What do you think?
I wouldn't like to be so overconfident to say that I steamrolled, but I do know that at least most of my shots were better than what I expected them to be. Like, I practiced, I switched lightning, and when I look at them, some of them I think were surpassing the ones that I had during Cycle 9, which is when I started the competitions. So I think some that were good, others I feel like I could have done better, but there are quite a few that I'm still proud that I managed to take and submit.
So, all right, so let's just take a look at some of your shots here, and I'd like to get some of your commentary and thoughts on just things you did to take each of these shots. So I'm gonna bring up some of these images here, and we'll just go through them and get your commentary here. So let me bring this up real quick. So your first image, you're kind of like my first thought that came to mind was the scene in Jurassic World with the what's his name there? I forget the actor, but this looks very similar to a scene where he's basically wrangling the raptors.
Yeah.
Was that
So,
was that your thoughts when you made this screenshot, or am I just kind of imagining that myself?
yeah, that was pretty much the intention because with this round, or starting off, it was a little bit weird for me because we had to look for monsters that were smaller than us, and I was like, okay, there's almost nothing that's smaller than me, so let's try mimics first. Oh hey, these mimics and my skill look similar. Let's try this with raptors, and that's how the screenshot was born. But I know that in this one I liked how I managed to get the reference right, but they were still bigger than me, so that was not a good start for the cycle at least.
So what actually was the result for this one? Did you win, or actually, let me just ask in general, like how many of your pictures actually were winners out of all the ones you entered?
Only one, sadly, but At least I'm glad that people still liked all the previous ones because they were still something that I enjoyed working with.
Okay, so that's, I mean, that's the thing though. Like, you don't have to win every time because it's based on a point system, right? So you don't
Yeah.
even
I'm
if
actually looking it up right now. That image, that was round one. Haila actually won the community vote that time, but she came in fourth on that first round
okay,
overall. So the way that we do Tumblr judging is we have our judges vote, and they rank everything. In this case, it was 1 through 14. And then we have the community votes where everybody ranks it there. And I changed the Google form this time to make the equations in the background a lot easier on myself instead of having to do a lot of hand adding. Everything is automated this time. So we got a lot of decimal places. But the judges' weight is 75% of the score, and the community weight is 25%. So it kind of works out similar to the way it does an Instagram cycle, where the judges will narrow it down to the top 2 or 3, and then it will be the community votes who ultimately decides which of those ends up winning, because there's usually a pretty close tie at the top 2 or 3, and then the community votes heavily weight toward one, sometimes. And it's also surprising the community votes turned into kind of their own mini competition in cycle 10, because we had some social media savvy people who got their free company to go and vote for them. And so for the first time we ended up crowning kind of a little secondary community winner as well, because in round 9 the community winner was the same as the judges winner, and it wasn't that case in round 10.
interesting. Yeah, it is. I do like the Tumblr cycle probably the best because of the way you're allowed to participate all the way up until the end, and the point system and the voting and everything kind of adds that extra layer to it. Whereas Rangi's cycles that he does with Instagram and YouTube are an elimination style, and it makes it a little bit harder to participate all the way to the end. It's a little bit more of a fierce competition, I think. But this one with Tumblr, I think is more, like first time friendly, I would say. Would you agree with that?
I would think so. I made the decision not to do elimination because as a model it's always heartbreaking to me to get eliminated, and because we now have the Instagram competition that has elimination and the YouTube competition with elimination, I think Tumblr cycle is, I agreed, more newbie friendly, and it does require the full 2-month commitment though. There's always kind of a relief when I got eliminated because, oh, I'm free now. I don't have to do this anymore. And we did have 3 models drop out of cycle 9. Amazingly, all 14 models stuck around in cycle 10, and I'm really grateful for that. Even though a lot of folks really considered quitting, they agreed to stick around just to see it through to the end, and I was happy about that.
Yeah.
Haila, you actually came in second in quite a few rounds, and that's why mathematically you ended up as the number 1 for the whole cycle. It was because we do a cumulative score throughout all 8 rounds, and by consistently getting second and third place, and then of course the week that you won, everybody else was just so all over the place. The first place winners would drop down to 13th or 14th the next week, and then there was a whole bunch of people who were consistently in 7th, 8th, 9th place every week. So even if they won one week, mathematically it just was going to be impossible. So the key to winning Tumblr cycle is to consistently put out a great screenshot. It doesn't necessarily have to win, but if it could get into that top 3, then by the end of the competition, you're going to win. Actually, I think by round 7, I figured out it was mathematically impossible for anybody to defeat you at that point. But I couldn't say that because it's still, there's another round to go. But I had access to the math, and I shared the math, and I use an Excel spreadsheet. I shared the Excel spreadsheet with all the judges, and I'm like, by round 7, I'm like, nobody's going to beat Haila. She's going to win. At that point, it just became who was going to come in 2nd and 3rd place.
So yeah, I want to just look at another, go through some more of these screenshots here, and I was wondering if you could, you said, Kat just said you got 2nd in most of them, but was there any ones in particular that you thought were particularly good, that you liked, that you really worked hard on, that maybe you want to comment on?
I guess there are 2 pictures that I know I worked the most onto, but my favorite would have been the one that won me one of the rounds, which was the film noir in black and white, because
Let me
it
bring
is
that one up real quick.
yeah, it's from round 6, and so
Yeah, that's a pretty nice shot.
yeah, I loved it because I also love to work with those kinds of things, with lightning, the darkness, the different glamours and how they look like with those with the black and white filter. But I had a few ideas in the beginning, and then my only wish to work with near the end, when I was wit's end of which screenshots to use, were this lone bride in the chapel. It was also at the same time that I was getting ready for my own anniversary wedding in game, so I also
was
took the
wondering about that.
chance. Yeah.
How you managed to get access.
Yeah, I pretty much got access 1 week, and I was like, oh, I got my bail back. I should probably take a good screenshot with this, because I'm not gonna be able to have it as much anymore later.
Listen,
And
Kat.
so,
I don't know
yeah.
about you, but when you have an idea for a screenshot, you'll do whatever it takes to make sure you can do it.
Yeah.
Even if it means getting married.
Right.
Yep.
They made it easier now with the anniversaries. You
Yeah,
can go
so
back in, renew
I
your
took the
vows.
chance and just was like, I'm gonna take all the screenshots I can from here, because I know I'm not gonna have access to it until much, much later, or if I wanna finish an alt.
Yeah.
So it was probably my biggest challenge, but also my best work so far.
Yeah, it turned out pretty nice. Like you said, a lot of times with the black and white photos, the challenge is getting the lighting correct, because everything just kind of blends in when it's all, the like the dual tone or whatever. So you kind of have to, work with lighting to really make a good screenshot, because you don't have the advantage of a lot of the things you normally do, like colors and things like that. So these ones are typically, I find, are a little more challenging. So the fact that this was the one that actually won, it just speaks to your own skill. So congratulations on that one.
Thank you. To me, there's also like something that makes pictures with this kind of filter stand out, or at least that's what I learned after 30 something screenshots that I ended up taking here. And it's that based off the lightning, or where you place each of the options that you get, just to have like a small detail, say the head or the side that has more light, that can mark the difference between like an actual picture with this filter in black and white, or another screenshot where you just slapped the filter on top of it. Like sometimes it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, a lot of times, very subtle details can mean the difference between, something that is really, really good, or really, really strong image, or, maybe not so strong. Some of the, in my experience with the Instagram cycle so far, that's still ongoing, is, I've had, just the direction that the character's head is facing has been like the difference between, a high score and a low score for me, because sometimes it just little details like that can become distracting and really take away from the rest of the image as a whole. So it's really important to have images that are cohesive and make sense and the way your character is positioned and lighting and colors and everything else. Um, so again, you know, this one looks pretty good to me. Like I would probably judge this one fairly high as well. So now that we've you know, bragged on yourself a little bit, is there any image that you thought was pretty bad that you thought shouldn't have been scored high, or like maybe you didn't work as hard as you should have?
I feel like there will be two in that category. One of them is because it actually has a small side story to it. The first one is the back to school round, which was round 3.
Right.
Because I spent quite a while working on that one, trying to get my squadron to have like specific poses, specific actions, and see what I could do with. But in the end, I misread some of the instructions, so the frames that I was using for the screenshot was actually wrong. And thus, I had in the last minute, like a couple of hours before the rounds closed, Kat sent me a message and was like, "Hey, you didn't follow the rounds, the rules. Do you want to take a screenshot again, or do you want to risk getting last place because of it?" And I had to, like, in 30 minutes just whip up the same thing that I was taking in the first place, and then send it in again. Actually, I'm noticing that the one that I shared is the original screenshot that I had in mind. But
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't notice until later. But that's pretty much the idea that I had in the first place, and the actual screenshot that ended up being submitted was similar, but it had you could tell that there was less work put into it, or it was a little bit rushed.
So you still came in third that round.
Oh
So
dear.
I'm curious, which what was the requirement that you didn't do correctly?
We had to, yeah. Go ahead.
It was supposed to be the picture frame or the instant camera frame. So the original round name that I came up with for that was yearbook. And the idea that I had in my head was snapshots of people doing school-like activities, because this came out around August, September. And so, like, in the American high schools, they have yearbooks, and that is just a collection of stuff from people throughout the school year, and a lot of that is candid photographs of activities, cheerleaders, sports teams, band members, classroom activities. And I was actually on yearbook committee when I was in high school. But then I realized that is very much an American thing, and so I changed the round name over to School Spirit, but I kept the original requirement that it had to be a picture frame or the instant camera frame. And it was when I was reviewing all the entries about to submit them that I realized, oh no, that's the wrong frame.
Yeah.
And I hurried up, and you weren't the only one who did that. There was another model who submitted the wrong frame, so both of you were able to get that in on time.
So you did end up submitting one with the correct frame, and even though it was rushed, it still ended up being in third. So that's pretty impressive right there. Sometimes I find that being under pressure can actually, you know, force you to produce results that, you know, maybe given more time, still end up being better, just because of the added time constraint. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's also like a chance where when you try to retake a picture, you'll notice, or you'll remember every mistake or everything that you thought could have been better on the previous one. So you just try to like not go through the same again and just come up with something completely new. Because in my case, since well, all the NPCs switch positions each time, I remember myself just entering the room and leaving over and over again until I found one that I could work with.
Yeah, I could share so many stories like that, and it's gotten better. Like we have more options with GPOs now, but like me and Ronki were reminiscing in the last podcast about um, way back in the day, like before GPOs, like you didn't have light sources you could place, like so you had to either use some object that was already in the game, like a lamppost or something, or like an Ethernet shard was one of my favorite things, or and then we finally got the sun minion, and that ended up being our light source for the longest time. So we've really come a long way, and but and recently, we've even had the addition of being able to lock in your weather, which man, I wish I had that in cycle 8, because that was
Dark and
one of the
stormy.
that was one of the hardest things, is just getting the weather to cooperate, and you would just sit there for hours just waiting for the right weather, and then when it finally came, you would get into your G pose, and then you'd have to wait for like the sun to just be in the right position, and then you had like a window of like maybe like 5 minutes to actually take your screenshot before the lighting changed again.
And now
So
you can just freeze it. It's awesome.
So yeah, I was wondering, what kind of challenges like that did you face during this competition? Like, what would you think caused you to spend a lot of time, or which screenshot, like, did you really have trouble getting that perfect picture?
Well, I think other than the school one, which was still different because I couldn't get the same NPCs in the same position I wanted, so I had to just improvise and experiment with lightning. But the other challenging one was dark and stormy for round 7 as well, but because it was not much of a problem with the weather as it was trying to find out what I was going to do with the whole image in itself. Like, I tried different skills, I tried different poses, and in the end, I was like, this is good aesthetically, but what else do I have going for this screenshot? And after taking so many, I was just tired that I was like, okay, I'm just gonna grab the one that is like the most imposing one out of all of them and see if it works. And still, even if some people I know liked it, I feel like it was still one of my weakest rounds so far.
You came in second.
Damn.
I think I'm starting to think that maybe Hyla's a little bit too harsh on herself. But
Probably.
I mean, what most artists are usually pretty hard on themselves, and that usually lends itself to good creativity. So there's nothing wrong with that. So and so and again, you come across different challenges, different things maybe give you a hard time, and you usually take some kind of um, you take something away from that, that maybe you learn for next time, that um, to do better. So like, Kat, is there anything you want to comment on that maybe, because you judge a lot of the images, and I wonder if you take some of that into your own screenshot taking as well, and things that you learn from maybe some of the models that you um, never thought of before, or maybe was new to you.
Yeah, I learned something every single cycle, whether I'm judging or participating in it. Um, and some of that is reading the feedback of the other judges and catching what they notice. Sometimes it's catching small, we call them flaws in the photos that I would not, if I had taken it myself, I probably wouldn't have noticed either. But when you see somebody else's screenshot, sometimes it immediately pops out in your face, like, that foot's cut off. Oh, that hand's cut off. And I just did that on something I put on my Instagram a couple days ago. I realized after I'd posted it that my hand was cut off. And if I had been judging that, that would have been a big dock of points. You should always try to keep the whole character in the frame, or if it's a half height, not clip bits of weapon or bits of hands or bits of toes. And so I agree. There's always something that I'm getting better at, and it's always something to learn, whether I'm judging or participating or just watching the images that are coming out of other people. And always think, hey, that's cool, I can do that. I also do it the opposite, though. Whenever I come up with the rounds, I always take a test image of what I think that round should look like. A great example of that is the film noir one, where I took a gothic 1960s horror story in Dune Scaith. I'm like, oh wow, this is great. So I want to see some 1950s black and white movies. And we had some models who had no idea what film noir actually was, and then Haila came and knocked it out of the park. She got it right on the first try.
Yeah, I actually was not sure myself what to do for film noir, but it was like, if it's black and white, I'll work with it and see what I can get done with.
I think that's a genre. I might not use it in cycle 11 again, but that's going to come back because that was a real good challenge for people, and some of the stuff that folks came up with was incredible.
Yeah, I'm also, looking forward to future cycles as well, because Square Enix is always adding new things to the GPOs. They, here and there they'll add new filters and things, and new features like I just mentioned. Now you can lock in the weather. One of the things that I was actually hoping for is the ability to change like the time of day specifically, so you can just set that up yourself, and you don't have to even wait for the weather to show up. You can just pick which one you want. And maybe we'll get that, and maybe we won't. But things like that open the way to more interesting themes, because you can tell somebody you have to use this weather, you have to use, has to be night or whatever. So I like I said, I always look forward to the next cycle and seeing what new changes come out of it. So I was wondering, Kat, like what, you're in charge. So what do you think? Do you have any ideas or things you might want to change coming up in the next cycles?
One thing I've learned is to be a little bit more careful in my descriptions of the round. I have a concept in my head of what the images should be, but then I try to write a cute little paragraph, and some of my judges have taken that little blurb way too seriously. And the result has been models getting dinged for things I didn't intend to be outside of the theme. So Rangi calls it the art and science of coming up with cycle rounds, and it's something that I need to be better at in cycle 11, because it's not fair to my models if the judges are reading a paragraph and reading words and saying, well, it has to be this, that's what it says. And I'm like, no, I said it was okay to do this other thing. Dark and Stormy was a great example. I allowed models to do anything that I considered stormy weather. So the Aether Storm or Ixion weather I would have accepted. And the judges were like, well, where's the raindrops? I'm like, no, I didn't say it had to have rain. I said storm. So there was some back and forth between the judges and myself, where I specified one thing in the round description and then gave the rules to the models, and I had to clarify with the judges what was actually allowed. So in Haila's case, there were no raindrops because it's Aether Storm, and if the judges hadn't asked about that, they might have docked a lot more points than they should have, because there's no rain.
Yeah, and I do in my experience now with judging the Instagram cycle, I think most of Ronki's themes have been pretty open-ended, but also he does give a little bit of information as to what the theme should actually be, and that's usually helpful in deciding, how to judge the images themselves, as far as how closely are they tying themselves to the theme and fulfilling those requirements. So that I would probably agree with that. And is there, anything about the scoring that you think you might do differently as well, or?
My biggest concern is Google's been trying to do away with their old forms. They've been trying to kill it for months now, and they sent out the notice in, I think it was September, that they were going to end the old forms. They haven't done it yet, so I was able to get through all of cycle 10 using the grid format of scoring. Previously, I was using a method that was developed by Kai that was going to be drop-down menus. So you manually had to choose the order from all 14 models. I'm like, this isn't going to work. There's 14 models. So I came up with the grid format, and now Google wants to take it away because that format isn't properly supported under the new Google form, and you can't expand the size of it. So if Google takes that away from me, I'm actually looking at having to possibly program my own website to do the scoring, just so I can get the grid format that I need. I've got a master's degree in internet programming, so I can do it, but I don't necessarily want to do it because the Google poll I can throw together in an hour and not have to spend an entire day manually editing text.
That's interesting because Rangi had mentioned that there was possibly a ENTM website in the works. So I'm wondering if that's partly you're doing. Are you involved with that at all? Or
Kai, it's actually Kai who's in charge of that. We're plotting a lot of that in the background. When we made the change from so we were Yours' next top model, and then when Rangi decided he wanted to become more involved with the greater Glamour community, and so we joined Haila International. That's why we changed it over to Yours' Neo Talent Management. We could keep the acronym name, and we decided that instead of having just all these disparate social media accounts, we should probably have everything in a central location. And so that's where the idea of having an ENTM website was born, and Kai was voluntold to do that. But we've been a lot of the new graphics that we've been coming with, the new color scheme that we chose. That was actually, I believe, Rangi who picked that, and we've just kind of rolled with it. I came up with business cards the other day, a couple weeks ago. I mean, for each of us. So Kai is like the general manager, and then I'm the host of Tumblr Cycle, and Rangi's the host of YouTube Cycle. So we have business cards we can give out now. But we'll see where the website goes. It's right now we just have the 3 social media accounts and the Discord channel. But I agree, a website would be incredibly helpful, and then we could just have all our voting there.
Yep.
The other issue is Tumblr has changed its rules, and so now voting links can't be included in the actual advertising post. I'd have to keep the URL there and then reply back with hot links. It's something may have to change. At this point, we may. I don't want to take it off Tumblr entirely, and we already use Imgur for our image hosting. But if Tumblr is going to keep this up, I'm not sure how sustainable competitions like ENTM are going to be in the future.
Yeah, you may just have to get to work on that website then.
Yeah.
So, well, and all that's pretty exciting. And I do hope to also have the podcast hosted on the website as well when it does finally get completed. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that all turns out. And before we move on to the Fanfest stuff, I just wanted to see if there's any other comments you would like to make to people who may be thinking about participating in Cycle 11, and give us any information you can about the next cycle, and possibly when that may be taking place, so people can start preparing.
It's probably going to start up near the middle of January. I don't want to start it in December just because so many people are going to be going home for the holidays. Students have exams. I'll be on vacation. I'm hoping to spend New Year's Day in New Orleans myself. Hope to my team goes to the Sugar Bowl. And if that works out, then I wouldn't be back until the middle of January myself anyway. So probably not until the middle of January. So that would be the time to start looking for the call for models. I'd like to keep model auditions open for about 2 weeks. The ideal number of models per cycle is about 10 to 14. If we have more than 14 people audition, we'll have to make some hard decisions and turn some people away. 10, I think, is more manageable, but we took all 14 this past cycle, and it kind of worked out. So yeah, January, and then the actual screenshot competition would have a buffer of 2 or 3 weeks for people to start coming up with ideas before we begin the weekly cycle competition.
Early January, that sounds just about in time for patch 4.5 to come out with Blue Mage, so I wonder if there'll be any Blue Mage themes in the next cycle.
I might take some inspiration from Blue Mage and just make around something like Rhapsody and Blue and require that you have blue filters. That would be something different. You notice the round names always tend to be something, a keyword or a phrase or a song lyric, in the case of film noir, a genre. And I think using that as inspiration for the shots is something that will continue on in cycle 11. Rongi tends to go with one words like doors, wings.
Right. Well, sometimes that can be a good thing because it leaves it more to the imagination and maybe keeps it more to the creativity of the model and
Yeah.
less
Less the interpretation of the judges on
right.
what this theme actually is
It's
supposed to
not
be.
as structured, I guess, and more free form, which is nice sometimes. But anyways, so with that, I think we can start moving into our FanFest discussion, which I'm sure everybody has been anxiously awaiting. So I understand Haila actually attended FanFest, so I was wondering if we could start things off. If you could just tell us a little bit about your experiences there and how awesome it was, and make us all jealous.
Well, it's just, for starters, I'd say it was great. Like it can't even compare a little bit to the previous FanFest because of how organized it was, how the lines were still long, but it was still not as bad as last time. There were many
Line
things, yeah, many things that made it so that everyone could enjoy themselves, even when they were like trying to find a specific place to go to, like the challenge roulette, listen to the panels, take screenshots in the Kugane mini plaza that was put up together, all the golden saucer attractions, taking pictures, climbing Kugane Tower. There were so many things to try out and also to enjoy that you could pretty much go in there, get lost, do everything, and still feel like you weren't too tired to just keep going.
Right. So so you went to a previous fan fest as well.
Yeah.
Have you been to all of them then?
No, I've only been sadly to the previous one and this one. I was stuck in my country for the first one, pretty much.
Hmm. So, I've always wanted to go to one as well, and usually it's an issue of I got to have some money for the hotels and flights and things, and usually that's kind of a challenge for me. So, and this year too, the ticket purchasing website, a lot of people had an issue with that. I understand the North American tickets were sold out almost immediately, and so did you actually use that website, or like how did you actually get your tickets? How was that experience for you?
For me, it was like a chain of miracles because when the tickets went up for sale, I didn't have it, or I had the money, but it was not going to be enough for me to also get the tickets and the flights, etc., etc. So it was a chain of my boyfriend offering to get me my ticket, then our entire crew, somebody having like, somehow having like 3 to 4 people that actually managed to get through the website, and then just asking who's missing a ticket. Okay, I got you. You're gonna pay me later. And so
Awesome.
it was just like a whole joint work in which everyone somehow managed to get a place or a ticket to go to Fanfest, and then one of my friends from the free company managed to also get like a hotel room like they did in the previous Fanfest. So all of that fell together into the whole plan of it, and then even I was even luckier because some things happened over here on my end with my family that they they had to like redeem points to get flight tickets or anything before they lost their value. So okay, we're gonna use these points on you as well. You can go to Vegas.
Oh, that was really sweet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good idea. Actually, I should remember that for next time. If you want to get tickets, you know, you're better off getting a group of people together to all go on the website together to increase everybody's chances of getting a ticket. So I'll have to remember that for next time. So and then so you got there. Did you arrive early or did you arrive like just in time? Like was the registration lines pretty long or so how was getting to FanFest for you?
For the registration, we arrived like almost on time with the time that they opened up. The lines were not too bad because, well, registration was up even before FanFest started. So our group would just go hang out on one side of the hallway and wait for those that had bought all the tickets to come over and then go. In my case, I had to go over and also, thanks to another friend, get a spot on the line for pre-orders because mine had the problem that it had been cancelled. So I had to go over and plea for my case as well at the same time that my friend was gathering the things for my own ticket as well.
And did you get any of the merchandise? Did you have like a pre-order waiting there for you or did you basically just go for the fan fest and not really purchase any merchandise?
Um, I thought I wouldn't be able to get most of what I had ordered because there would be nothing waiting for me because of the way that the system from Square did not recognize my cards. But the people in customer service in the pre-order line and even the Merc line were really, really understanding and nice. And so when I went over and asked them, "Hey, this happened to me. How can I get my Merc?" They were like, "Don't worry, we'll help you over here. You're not the only person that had this problem. We had other people here as well. We can ring you out right now alongside the pre-order people." So that was a
Oh,
good thing.
that's pretty nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a lot of talk before FanFest of people's orders getting canceled for some reason and things like that. So it's nice to see that they were able to get that all sorted out for you guys.
Yeah, even the Merc actually lasted longer than I expected to because, say, last FanFest, I'm pretty sure the lore book sold like on day one last time. And in this one, like I come back on day 2 and I see that there's still quite a few of the things from the Merc that I expected gone that were still there. Like only lore book 1 had sold out by day 2. Lore book 2 took a while to still be out of stock.
Yeah, I'm still. I had pre-ordered my lore book, you know, when it was first announced back in September, I believe, and today's Sunday, and the book was released Saturday, and I've yet to be billed for it. I'm expecting that to ship out Monday, so hopefully I'll get my hands on that pretty soon. Have you flipped through it at all? Is there any good bits of information in there that maybe you want to share?
Well, I didn't really get the chance to like stop and read a lot about them, but there's quite a lot of information at last about different areas within El Amigo Doma. A little bit, I think it was a little bit more about government. So for any person that was looking forward to Like have a bit more of a reference for their characters that are not exactly in the three main cities, then this is their chance to go in and learn a little more of what they wanted.
Yeah. So that's for me personally. I just use it as a resource for learning more about the game world and like speculating on where the story is going to go and things like that. But that is a good point that you bring up that um, if you're a role player, you probably use this lore book quite often to come up with stories for your character and make sure your role plays are as accurate as possible. So that's a good point. If you guys are role players, you might consider picking up the lore book and using that to your advantage. So
Yeah, I'm lucky. One of my friends who did manage to get a ticket to Fanfest didn't want to buy the lore book. So his girlfriend's like, well, you can use his pre-order merch and I'll pick up the book and bring it back with us. And so I'll be getting my book on Monday when I see her.
nice. So um, so you got all your merch, and so basically the keynote was Friday, right? And then so you went it. How was that? Was there a long line to get in there, or and what? How about like how long was it, and so what did you do after that? Because a lot of people wonder, like when you go to FanFest, like what do you actually do? Because the keynotes and stuff usually, they don't take up a lot of time, and maybe some of the panels you can go to as well. But it's like, what do you do for the majority of your time there? I think I would be curious to know that.
Well, I think it's like so open that you can pretty much trace your own route of what you want to do, because well, when the keynote started, it was like 40 minutes, an hour after the doors to FanFest had actually opened. So there was plenty of time for people who were in line to just find a seat for themselves, walk around, look at the new things. Some people even started doing lines for all the challenges and other things way before the keynote had even started. So after the whole euphoria of watching the new trailer, listening to Yoshida, please look forward to it. Then pretty much everyone was free to do whatever they wanted. In my case, I wanted to try the Kugane Tower challenge, but the lines were too big already. But regardless of where you were, like if you were doing lines for the Chain challenge, for the Eureka challenge, for the PvP challenge, anything, there were screens in all the rooms where you could just watch whatever was being transmitted, like the panel about the fights and uh, Ultima Weapon Ultimate, how it came to be, history of this, information about the new things that will come over in the new expansion. Then you weren't going to miss anything, regardless of where you were in all of FanFest.
So that's cool. So even if you wanted to not do the keynote, maybe take advantage of that time to go do some of the challenges, you could still be safe in knowing that you're not going to miss any information.
Yeah, you could just be standing in line about to enter the challenge and still be watching the whole thing that was happening. In my case, I waited until like day 2 to do the challenges, because before that it was pretty hard to just spend like 2 hours in the same line. But even then, I watched, I think, a good chunk of the PvP's tournaments while I was waiting in lines. And then I think I also watched the light letter while being in lines, but I missed a few bits of it.
So I was curious too. When you do go into the keynote, did you actually go in and watch it, or were you just watching it on a monitor? Or
When you're going to when you were on the keynote, it was pretty much all the seats arranged in front of the stage, and there would be 3 screens on the front. focusing on Yoshida and all the different people, and then even two back screens for people that were all the way in the back of the hall to also watch what was happening. There was audio for everyone to hear whatever was going on. I did not enter the gaming area during that time, but I'm pretty sure the people that were in line were also watching the big screens that were also in there. So
And you mentioned that you could pretty much just sit wherever you want, or was there like assigned seating? Like I was curious if like the different media outlets actually get like front row seating so they can you know, if they get some kind of special treatment or what have you. Because I recall watching the keynote on Twitch, and you know, I would look through the crowd and see if there was anyone I recognized, and a lot of the like popular streamers I noticed were all sitting in the front row, and I was wondering if that was just a coincidence or not.
well, I do not know exactly like to say this is exactly how it is, but according to the map that we had of the whole place where FanFest was taking place, the first few rows were some reserved for people with disabilities, and then the other ones were like private reservations. So I assume that all the streamers and people that have a strong presence within the community were the ones that were granted those seats, because we did get to see a few of them going to the front as well.
Yeah, I was happy to see that Koji actually brought Anonymous on stage when he was talking about the lore book. I thought that was a nice thing for the community to have those, you know, people from the community getting involved with the actual panels and such as well, and to find out that he actually worked on the lore book as well is I thought that was pretty nice. So
Yeah, it is always nice to see like the developers involving the community a little more so that they can feel like that they're not being left behind, that they're being heard, that they can have fun alongside the people that are collaborating to keep this game being as awesome as it is. So yeah,
yeah,
it is really nice.
yeah. I like Kat said she's been around since 1.0. I've been around since 1.0 as well. So they're like, at least for me, there is this sense that you know, we're all kind of part of the same family. You know, we kind of stick together, and you know, through all the years, and you kind of feel like you get to know the developers and stuff like that. So it's nice that they also seem to feel that way towards the community as well, and getting the prominent community members involved with the actual development of things sometimes. So I was pretty pleased to see that. So and so with that, is there anything else you would like to mention as far as your experience with FanFest? Anything maybe you think they could have done better? Did you get to talk to anyone in particular? Like, did you get to meet Yoshida or Koji or anything like that, and have any kind of thoughts to share on that?
Sadly, not in this case. I feel like probably the lines to meet the developers could have been a little bit longer, because each time I found, for example, the line for Yoshida, the line for Soken, it would be like a few, like 30 people, and then the staff would be like, no, the line's cut off, you can't come back.
Mm.
So I went around wondering, trying to find anyone that I recognized, and I couldn't get a single one, only probably Thought's clone. He did appear a lot of times around, so he got to the point that he was actually free to walk around sometimes without people going after him. In my case, since I couldn't get to talk to any of them, I ended up writing letters to all of them instead, and cringe nowadays wondering if I wrote Japanese well or not, because I'm losing most of it. So I hope I didn't insult any of them at least.
All right, all right. So, so with that, I think we'll move in and start talking about some of the news that came out of the Fan Fest and just get everybody's reactions. So we'll start start off with the keynote and just kind of go through some of the information that was provided. And so the first thing that was revealed, and let me just bring this up here so you guys can see these slides. And here we go. Okay, so the first thing that was revealed was the title, and it's Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers is the title of 5.0. Um, so what was your initial reaction hearing that title?
I felt it was actually kind of, we anticipated it was going to be something like this. We had gotten a hint since we fought the Warriors of Darkness that there was going to be this ultimate showdown between light and dark, and so the title Shadowbringers really, I think it's a cool poetic title, but it wasn't a big shock the same way that Stormblood was. We kind of knew with Heaven's Word that we were going to go to Ishgard next because that was something that had been promised since 1.0, and then with Stormblood, with 4.0, we were like, oh, we're going that way. Okay, that was something different. We didn't even believe that Stormblood was going to be a Final Fantasy game when they registered the name a couple months before they announced it. In the case of Shadowbringers, yeah, I think it was less of a surprise, and I think it's also a cool and poetic title.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys if you're like me and you keep track of information that's posted on Reddit and things like that. So a lot of times the information in the Fanfest is stuff that the community is kind of, already basically surmised themselves, and Shadowbringers was one of those things. And this has happened for pretty much all the Fanfest. The title is usually revealed ahead of time because they'll go ahead and get a patent on that, and there's various Twitter accounts and things that keep track of that, and usually people are up on that and post that information to Reddit. So so Shadowbringers was initially revealed to us via that Twitter, and a lot of people were thinking that was going to be the title, and turns out they were correct. So but I do like the title. I think it's a nice title. It's going, I think it does. It is appropriate for the content that we're going to be dealing with in the storyline. So just moving on here. They said it's going to be released in summer 2019. I'm kind of expecting them to follow their usual timeline, probably around June or so for the release. What do you guys think there? Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, it sounds pretty much like that will be the case because, well, there's a ton of content that they'll have to still chunk down with Blue Mage coming before Shadowbringers to begin with, so there's many things for us to get done and work with or even get used to before we even get to the next expansion.
Yeah, and I do want to get your guys' thoughts on Blue Mage, so we'll get to that. But I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on the upcoming main storyline. We're going to be taking on Garlemald finally, which is something I've been looking forward to for a long time, and I'm excited the direction they're taking, potentially bringing back some of the characters from even 1.0 to possibly even be our companions in the storyline. I'm sure you've all heard the speculation that who the identity of the I can't think of his name right now, the nickname he was given, but the companion that Alphino is currently with right now.
The Shadow Hunter or something
Yes,
like that?
Shadow
Yeah.
Hunter. Yes, I couldn't think of that name
Yeah.
because I just go with the speculation that that's actually Gaius Van Baelsar. So
Yeah, it's totally
Yeah.
guys.
so and he was totally my favorite villain from 1.0, and I was sad to see him so unceremoniously taken care of so easily at the end of 2.0. And ever since that time, I had hoped he would make a return somehow. That like we never saw his body, like we never knew what really happened to him. So
He wasn't in Palace of the Dead.
right, so
Yep.
so I'm excited to see where that storyline's taking us. And I hope that he does become our ally because like, and I don't know if you recall from 1.0, but there was always this feeling that he was kind of his own person and wasn't really like just the lapdog of the emperor basically, and he kind of had his own thoughts on things, and that made him kind of a more interesting character to me. And I had always wondered if he might one day move against the empire, and it seems like that seems to be what's happening here.
Yeah, I agree that his character was, he always felt that he was going to war with Yorza to liberate it, that by everybody being trapped in the thrall of the primals and with the religion of the 12, that if he could take over Yorza and free us from these religious confines and stop the primal threat, that he would actually be helping us. And of course, as we revealed in the last couple of patches, the entire empire has been manipulated possibly since the beginning, and I think he kind of resents that. I get the sense that he resented the manipulation of the Ashians against him personally, against everybody in his chain of command, and now he wants to nuke them instead.
Do you think that he's aware of the Ascian plot currently that was revealed in 4.4 with the whole the Garleans empire actually being formed by Ascians, and that's part of his crusade against them?
I suspect yes, he's found that information out somehow. Whether it was top secret information that got revealed to him, or if somebody else, I wouldn't put it past an Ashian revealing it to him when they thought he was about to die. Ha ha ha! We played you this entire time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way they are.
Right. So it does seem like there's a sort of revenge arc going on there, and I'll be excited to see where that takes us in 5.0.
Yeah, pretty much it feels that way because, for example, in my case, main scenario has made me watch the last cutscenes with Gaius quite often when it comes down to the final fights between him. And you can tell to a degree that he felt like he had been played by the Asians. Like they had not told him the true purpose of the ultimate weapon back then. So now that we see him once more with like a belt hang with a bunch of Asian masks hanging on his side, you can tell that he's probably been attacked in revenge on them and even trying to find out what exactly is their plan in all of this in the main scenario story. So he's like a sort of a renegade to me that is doing things his own way, not relying on Garlemald, not on Eorzea. He's just doing what he can and being the kind of the person that knows the truth but cannot share it so easily with others.
Right, right. And the other thing that was revealed in 4.0 as well, well, I wouldn't say revealed, but basically the incident that happened was all the scions kind of were taken out, and we heard this voice, and a lot of people are speculating, and I tend to agree that it sounds very similar to our friend Arbert, the Warrior of Darkness, and that's gonna and he's gonna play a role in 5.0 as well. So I wonder what if you guys have any theories on that.
I actually have a pet theory on the souls getting sucked out. The second boss from Alamega Castle had the ability to knock souls out of the body. And so I think the actual soul sucking was being done by either that person or someone who has access to that technology, because that mechanism where you got your soul knocked out of your body and then you had to crawl to it while the Garlean bits were attacking everybody else. As soon as that cutscene happened, I'm like, I knew I saw that someplace, and then I actually rolled into that dungeon as a tank, and then I saw the second boss. I'm like, aha, yeah, it was this guy.
So if you recall, the last time we saw Arbert was I forget the exact patch number, but it was in Heaven's Word, where basically in the ethereal sea after doing what's the name of that dungeon? The upside down castle place.
Anti-tower.
Yes, at the end of the anti-tower, and we were speaking with Heidelin, and basically, Heidelin says that she's going to return Arbert and his party back to his shard that he came from. So at that time, it seemed like they were actually like dead, like they were killed off. I mean, technically they were already dead because we learned that their bodies were actually similar to how the Asians operate. They're actually just souls residing inside of a vessel body, and that's how they were able to travel to our world. Because normally, to traverse the shards like that, it would kill you. Like there's no way to survive that travel ordinarily. So he had to actually sacrifice his actual body to be able to arrive at the source shard and interact with us as well. So my theory is that as you guys were saying, that their souls were removed from their bodies and possibly transported to the Warrior of Darkness's realm to communicate with Arbert there. So I wonder how likely you guys think that scenario might be, or even if that may be a location that we visit, the Warrior of Darkness's shard, because it wasn't actually revealed that what our destination will be in 5.0. We know we're going to be visiting Garlemald, but there, as we learned in 4.0, the initial area that we go to may not be the only area we go to.
Yeah, Doma was a nice surprise in 4.0. We weren't expecting that. We kind of knew all Amiga was coming, but then Doma, and we're like, yay, 2 things. I actually think you're right that we'll probably end up going to, if not just one of the other shards, but possibly. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Void is one of those shards where darkness is taken completely over. I think that was the
That's
first one to
correct.
collapse.
Yes, I believe that one is the 13th shard, if I'm correct. I could be wrong, but it's one of the later shards, if I recall. And the Warrior of Darkness resides on the first shard, so it's the one nearest to our own.
So I think whether it's in a 24-man raid or some other context, I agree we'll probably end up visiting that shard, if not also some of the other shards that haven't fully been combined yet, or collapsed, or are still somehow accessible.
Yeah, we still don't fully understand the nature of the other shards and how the rejoining actually works. Like, if a shard is rejoined with the source, does it actually disappear, or is it like does it still exist but its energy is absorbed and it's just kind of left as a husk world? We don't really know. So I'm hoping they're going to shed some light on that as well in the 5.0 storyline. So we can kind of have a better understanding of how that all works. That's one of the things that I'm most interested in. So moving on here, the other main story point that we were given in the keynote was that we're actually going to have to reject our Warrior of Light lineage and become the Warrior of Darkness. So what do you guys think about that idea?
I feel like it's an interesting concept because, well, I am a hardcore Final Fantasy III fan, so in that case, it is shown that there needs to always be balance, just like Arbor and the Warriors of Darkness showed themselves that where there is light, there also has to be darkness. In our case, we've been light for so long, and we've shifted the balances so much that us coming the full cycle pretty much makes sense right now at this point. If anything, I feel like the only difference in this is that the Scions, our friends, would not be able to say anything or complain or probably try to stop us because they're not there right now. Or that's what I think at least. So that opens the chance for us to like have an arc similar to the Dark Knight storyline in the beginning, so that we can come to conclusions on what really we have to do in this point in time.
Yeah, that was kind of my feeling as well, that the story was going to take a sort of a tone that is similar to the Dark Knight story quests. Have you guys gotten a chance to do those? Have you leveled up Dark Knights at all, or
Yeah, that was my main tank for the longest time. That was the first job I got to 70 in 4.0, and I ended up switching to Paladin midway because Dark Knight needs a little bit of work to be more fluid. I do love the concept of the job, though, the vigilantes for justice, and we have to do what's right, even if it means going against the law, our friends, and we have to protect those who are getting abused by the system. I've always loved that Dark Knight job. So yeah, that I think that ties into the theme. We have to do the right thing, even if it goes against everything we've been taught.
right, right. Yeah, a lot of those themes in that Dark Knight storyline are themes that I think a lot of people can relate to. So, a lot of people may think that, oh, they're just trying to be edgy or whatever and making, the story about Dark Knight or whatever. But, I think we will see the Warrior of Light have to make some hard choices and maybe go against some allies of ours. And one of the things too that was mentioned that we may have to go solo this time, like maybe our scions will be out of commission and it'll be up to us to kind of handle things on our own. So that might be an interesting story point for the Warrior of Light as well. So I'm looking forward to the story as a whole, and I'm anxiously waiting to see even the 4.5 revelations to see what actually happens there, because they did mention there's going to be some significant like lead up to the expansion in that. And they are going to actually break it up into two parts this time as well, like much like they did prior to Heaven's Word. So I'm expecting some pretty big story developments there. So I'm looking forward to those as well, as I'm sure you guys are as well.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on here, we're gonna start talking about some of the features that were teased. We started talking earlier about Blue Mage. That was one of the jobs that was shown, and also it was teased via the trailer that we might possibly also have a Gunblade using class as well. So what do you guys think about those jobs?
All the glamours. Just think about all the
Looking
glamours.
Yep.
Yeah,
Please look forward to it.
I do
Looking forward to it.
I do like the Blue Mage artifact gear that was shown. I think it's pretty loyal to the original, which is nice. But honestly, I'm looking forward to dyeing it.
So you're gonna be a bread blue mage or a black blue mage?
maybe a pink Blue Mage. Everything pink. But yeah, there are a couple of pieces, particularly the shorts I like with they're kind of like short shorts with like a garter belt. I don't think we really have any glamour like that in the game right currently. So that was a piece I was excited for. But it's probably going to be job locked. So if I actually want to use that and glamour, I'd have to actually level Blue Mage. So and I do plan to level it because I do just typically do content just to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm currently grinding through base relic weapons right now, like the actual books on every single job, just to do it. Yeah.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it was actually M. Taligo, one of the other judges for cycle 9 and 10, and I think she was a competitor along with you in cycle 8.
Yep.
She got me hooked on the achievement grind, the score grind, and trying to rack up as many achievement points as possible. And so I kind of blame her for that. Trying to. I mean, it's good though, because if you ever run out of content to do, there's always some achievement you haven't done, and you can start grinding on that.
Yeah.
If you get bored with it, you can switch. You can always go back and fish.
Yeah, go back and fish. Okay. I tried going for big fish one time, and I lasted about an hour before I gave up. Yeah, the RNG on those is so bad. I really have a lot of respect for someone who can sit there and do all those and get like the big titles and everything. The one I was going for was Master Caster, because I play all the caster jobs, so I was going to use that as my title. And they want you to get like 100 big fish or something, and I couldn't even get one, so I just gave up on that idea. So, but yeah, anyways, moving on here. We know we're going to get our level cap increased to level 80. They mentioned some battle system maintenance, probably, shuffling some skills around, maybe deleting some skills that we're probably not going to use very often. We mentioned that hopefully there's going to be a Dark Knight rework. Dark Knight is the poster class for this expansion, so we would hope that they give that class a little bit of attention. So you guys said you play Dark Knight, so I'm wondering like what kind of changes you're looking for there.
Well, I haven't played enough Dark Knight to like hope for a change, but I do know that it does need a lot of rework. Like even before the trailer was announced, all I would keep hearing were Dark Knight jokes, how they're not good enough, they're not great here, but it's still to me like a job that can be enjoyable as long as you have somebody that knew how to use it well.
Yeah.
So to see it being reworked for 5.0, I can't even start to wonder what we're gonna see that's new, other than like having both MP and TP mixed up in the same bar.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the most interesting change, and that's impacting not just Dark Knight but all classes. Specifically, Dark Knight is got the worst problem with having to weave in multiple
arts,
skills
right?
in between the global cooldown, because if you want to do dark arts and a defensive buff at the same time before the next weapon skill, you have to do them like back to back. And so the timing on that one is really difficult, trying to figure out when can I pop my buffs and when can I pop my buff from my DPS at the same time with dark arts. So and when I switched over to Paladin in these last couple of months, I noticed it doesn't have that same problem. There's always time to get a buff up between the global cooldown, and the trade-off is that it's not as easy to stance on Paladin as it is on Dark Knight. So I think Dark Knight's big problem right now is it's just too button mashy heavy compared to the other tanks. And Warrior also has a lot of button mashy heavy, and it has the same trade-off that it's a little tougher to stance, but it's not nearly as bad as Dark Knight, because Dark Arts, they even took away the buff from one of the weapon skills because we're like, it's too much. We're having to press Dark Arts every single time we hit a weapon skill, because it's potential damage lost otherwise.
Right. So I mean, one of my biggest takeaways with the whole TP MP thing is that with the removal or I should say the consolidation of the two resources, that kind of in my mind opens the way for making the job gauges a little bit more important, and possibly having that be a more primary resource for all the jobs as well. And with Dark Knight specifically, the blood gauge is primarily filled by taking hits with the Blackest Night. So if you're not actually main tanking, it's a lot more difficult to fill that blood gauge. And and use some of your more important skills like.
Well, you just toss the Blackest Night on the main tank when you know there's a tank buster coming, and oh, you'll get it then.
Well, I guess most of my tanking experience is in 4-man content. I don't really take it into
Yeah,
raids,
you don't.
so
Yeah.
I don't really have anyone else I can throw it on, you know. But it's it's to me it feels like there definitely should be more with the job gauges for a lot of classes you mentioned Paladin. I don't think Paladin does much with their job gauge.
No, the only primary skill that you get out of I can swap over to it real quick because I always forget the name of it, is Sheltron. And then there's also the intervention that you can. Sheltron is for yourself, interventions for another party member. Honestly, those could be the same skills, just like the Blackest Night can be thrown on anybody else. Why can't we just toss Sheltron on anybody else and not have a second, thing for intervention? But yeah, and that's pretty much it. And the way to build it on Paladin is to use the Requiescat and then spam Holy, and then after that it's just weapon skills. So I think Dark Knight has a much more interesting way of building it as the main tank than Paladin does, because you build it up as you take damage, and there's a couple other mechanisms. But Dark Knight also does more interesting things with the gauge. The gauge really feels like an afterthought on Paladin, and that's because it is. The gauges didn't exist in the form that they're in level 50, and I don't even think level 60 content. And that was a Stormblood 4.0 thing. We're gonna try to give every job a gauge and give them something to do with it. And in the case of Paladin, it didn't really work that well.
Right. There was
Everything else about Paladin is so solid, though.
Yeah, there was a few jobs like that. I can remember there was a lot of complaints about White Mage and their whole Lily gauge system that just kind of seemed tacked on and wasn't really very thought out. So I'm hoping that that's what they're going to do with this battle system maintenance, is kind of take a look at those job gauges and kind of see how they can make those a little bit more important. And hopefully we'll get some good changes out of that.
I think the job that got the most love out of the job gauge was Summoner. With the Bahamut gauges, Summoner's rotation got wonderfully complex, and it was so overpowered they had to nerf it a couple of times.
And they're still pretty overpowered.
Oh yeah, Summoner's so fun. Big booms.
Yep. Summoner's my main, so I have to be a little biased there. So they were number 1 in the FF logs for a long time, and I think they're about number 3 now, which makes sense to me. They finally buffed Samurai and Black Mage up to where their personal DPS actually warrants them a spot in the party for raid. But yeah, so I'm pretty happy with where things have landed so far. But again, I think the main thing, hopefully they go for is fixing those job gauges and make them a little bit more interesting. So moving on from the battle system a little bit, we did have some new areas shown. The first one that was shown was the Raktika Greatwood, which is a forest area. It looks pretty nice. There's some screenshots here, so I'm looking forward to that. It does also look like they're gonna be bringing back swimming as well, so that'll be something interesting that I hope they utilize in this zone, maybe a little bit more than they did even in Stormblood. So I don't know if you guys are looking at the screenshot that I'm looking at, but it's basically like a forest with a pond in the middle that you can probably swim and hopefully go underwater as well. One of the things I liked about swimming that I don't think they really utilized enough in Stormblood, like I think the only zone that really did was the locks, where you can swim underwater through like a cave system and then come up somewhere else on the map. So that was that's something that I thought was pretty cool, and I hope they that'll be used here in this forest area as well.
So one thing I'll say as an 11 player, that as soon as I saw Raktika Forest, that is Windurst. That is 100% Windurst. Just the lake, the giant tree in the middle, the architecture is straight up Windurstian, and so that was a huge nostalgia thing for me when I saw that. I'm like, oh, we're going back to Windurst. excited about that.
Yeah, I'm also looking forward to the music as well. So I hope, you know, like I did like the theme of the music in Windurst as well. Um, that was another thing I thought of too when Stormblood came out. When I actually went to the peaks for the first time, my initial thought was this is totally Saruta Baruta. You know what I mean? I don't know if you got that vibe as well, but they do seem to be drawing a little bit of inspiration from FF11 as of late. So, and you may take that as a positive or a negative, but us former FF11 players, I did play for quite a few many years myself. Um, that's something that I think is a good thing for the game. So, moving on here, we just have a few more screenshots of the forest area. We have what looks like to be a dungeon here with some kind of door here. And another thing that people have brought up as well about this Raktika Greatwood is they're expecting that this is possibly the homelands of the Viera, which were teased in the keynote as well. So I wonder what you guys think about Viera being added to the game. Do you guys think you'll play as them or not? You think that was a good choice or not really?
I'm really happy that it's probably being dated, but I'm also wondering how much the developers suffered through it because I know their main reason for not adding Viera earlier was because they will have to tweak the models for the feet in all the gear once more just to fit them. So that will be a complete nightmare. So if we do end up getting Viera, I'm looking forward to see what they're going to do because, for example, the gear from what was it? The dungeon in Yangsha, the one with the geomancers. You can see that some of the feet or the foot gear are similar to the Viera feet. So that felt like that there was some practice that was being put together to see how it was working.
Yeah, and another thing I've heard mentioned was the Halloween glamour, the werewolf outfit. There's kind of a little bit of playing with feet models there as well. So it
Yeah.
does seem like they've
Also,
been preparing for this.
the Christmas glamours from a couple years ago, the reindeer hoofs. Those are tippy toe. There's also some other PvP glamours where they've got um, people on tippy toe. One thing that somebody noticed when they do that is they don't actually alter the length of your calf, or rather the height of your character. They only alter the length of the calf. So they're cutting off part of your leg to give you the high heels in those. So that's from a programmatic standpoint, it's not probably that difficult to accommodate it on the different gear. It's just that, as you said, someone's going to have to do that on every single piece of gear in the game, and that's what interns are for.
Right, right. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for them myself. I'm honestly excited to see the full reveal because I'm wondering exactly like how loyal are they going to be to the Evilisian Vieras or you guys may have seen some of the concept art they came out with a couple of years ago, just kind of showing what they might look like if they did do them, and some of the ones that were shown were sort of like small, like almost Lalafellan type of Viera,
Yeah,
and
the fail, I think they're called.
I'm actually hoping that we get that style as well, because I do think that the regular Viera is just going to kind of be like Elizans with bunny ears, and realistically, and I may get some hate for saying this, but realistically, if you want to do that, you can just be an Elizan and wear the frickin' gold saucer bunny ears, and it'd be the same thing. So, so yeah, I am looking forward to see what they do with that. At the moment, I'm probably gonna stay with my aura, unless the models do look um, interesting to my liking. Like I said, I probably prefer the shorter ones. I don't know What do you guys think? You prefer the shorter ones or the taller ones?
I'm actually hoping we get both. I would like to have them do, because we always have two different clans for each race. I would like to see them offer both a super tall clan and then the short clan, and that would make everybody happy.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like probably that's what's going to happen. But we'll just have to wait and see. Um,
Yeah,
so
I'm hoping that is the case because, for example, at least for Aura, I was really excited when the race came out, but something that turned me off and made me sad was that I could not be as tall as I used to be as a healer, so I still had to compromise, but it's something that I miss seeing on a race that I like using.
all right, and so moving on here, another one of the areas that was shown was this Amarang area, which is kind of a mountainous region with some ruins here. So I'm thinking, maybe this is like the titles kind of sounds like almost dragon speak a little bit. So maybe that's like a dragon area, um, and maybe we'll get some lore out of that. There does seem to be like a desert region as well. Um, it almost gives me like maybe an Altepa vibe, or even like what's that zone where the Ostroza castle was in FF11 where all the Yagudos hang out. Like that castle kind of looks like this one in the screenshot.
There was Sarta Barta, and then there was the pass north of it.
I want to say it was a canyon, like Tarangi Canyon or something.
Taronga Canyon, yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. It kind of gives me that vibe a little bit. But these,
I got that sense actually out of a lot of the Alameda. Felt like the canyon from 11, the Stipley stones and things like that.
mhm.
And there was also Arapago Pass, I think, was the southern part of the canyon area.
So, and then again, the thing that wasn't really revealed in this part of the keynote was, where these zones actually are located. I think most people are probably guessing they're located in Ilsebard because we're going to Garlemald, but we don't know that for sure. For all we know, these could be locations in the first shard where our Bert's hanging out. So I'm interested to see where actually these zones are located. Another area that's been speculated because it's actually already revealed on the map. If you look at the whole world map, the one that was given to us after Stormblood launch, Thavnair is actually already revealed on the map as well. So I'm wondering if that's going to be an area we end up going to as well. And it does feel like a zone that Blue Mage could be involved with, or one of the other heavily speculated classes that have yet to be revealed was Dancer as well, and I feel like that one could possibly also have Thavnarian ties.
Yeah, I think it's possible that we'll be going there as part of the expansion, and Dancer would definitely be coming from Thavnir. If any city, it would be that one. We got a lot of that from the storylines in Kugane. I'm thinking of specifically the Weaver storyline, where you help to make a dress for one of the dancers, and she asked for a Thavnarian style bustier to impress the Thavnarian ambassador, and it was a total disaster because, well, you've seen those kind of dances before, and her putting on that outfit and doing that dance was not impressive to him at all. So yeah, dancer would, if it would come from any area, it would have to come from Thavnir. But remember how surprised we were that Astrologian did not actually start in Ishgard. Well, I mean, it started in Ishgard, but it wasn't. It didn't start in the observatorium like we thought it would. It started actually inside Ishgard. I'm sorry, never mind. Got mixed up there for a second.
That's all right. That's all right. So yeah, there's a lot of things still to be revealed from the other fan fest. So I'm looking forward to those as well. I like my money right now is going to be on Thavnair as well as Garlemald, and then like we said, possibly also the first shard, being able to visit that as well. So we'll have to wait and see. So the next thing that was shown in the keynote is we're obviously going to be getting some new beast tribes and some new primals. And the first beast tribe that was shown was the new Mo, which you guys may be aware is an Evilesian race as well. So I was kind of surprised to see that, honestly. Um, but I think it's good, and it kind of reinforces the idea that Ivalice is actually part of Hydaelyn as well in its own right. So this is kind of interesting, So what do you guys think about the addition of the new Mo?
I think they're cute.
They totally are. We definitely got to get a minion
Like,
from
I don't know a
our.
lot about the lore from Ivalice or any part of that Final Fantasy, but they do look interesting to interact with once probably we're inside the Remtica Forest.
Mhm.
If anything, I feel like there might be a reference saying that they're like distant cousins of the Viera or something.
Yep, that's all possible. Um, and it does open the way as well for possible other Evilesian races to show up as beast tribes as well. So some of the other ones that are currently left out, we know possibly Viera is going to be a playable race, so they're not going to be beast tribe. But we've seen the Benga from the 24-man raid, so they could possibly show up as a beast tribe. And one of the ones that I think a lot of people would probably like to see is the Evilesian Moogles as well. So I'm hoping for them to show up. I think that could be an interesting beast tribe as well. Possibly, maybe the crafting one. Who knows?
Yeah, I think I don't want to jump ahead, but I think the crafting actually may not be necessarily done by the beast tribes this time. They talked about the restoration of Ishgard might be some potentially end-game crafting content for the first time, something that isn't just, well, playing the market boards and trying to make as much gil as you can by or save as much gil as you can to make your own clothes.
Yeah.
So it might be that they do something different and that we're not
Yeah.
actually doing a beast tribe for the crafting. But then it could be that the leveling might be separate from the end game content that they hinted at.
Right. Yeah, we can go ahead and talk about the crafting in game. We just have a couple slides here. Some basic stuff, new dungeons, new raids. This is all stuff we come to expect. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. Not a lot of information was given anyway. The only thing that was revealed was a little bit later on, the new dungeon for 4.5, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So yeah, let's talk about the idea of the in-game content for Disciples of the Land in Hand. So as you mentioned, we're going to be doing the restoration of the Holy See of Ishgard, and one of the things that was mentioned in the actual keynote itself, and Haila, maybe you can back me up on this. They seem to be suggesting that after you complete the restoration of Ishgard, that there will be a housing area in Ishgard that we're going to be able to get access to.
I wouldn't be too sure about it because it was more so said jokingly that since so many people have been asking for Ishgard housing, that if we want it, we have to earn it by crafting and gathering. So there might be a chance that it is aided, but I wouldn't be too sure, at least right now, because for starters, Ishgard is not as big as the other cities to have a housing area, say, similar to the Mist, Lavender Beds, something of that size. I don't see it right now inside that place.
Not
Unless we do.
But not necessarily inside Ishgard. However, there are some closed off zones from 1.0 from the Ishgardian areas Notably, the bridge that's been under repair since we fought Gilgamesh on at the big bridge, the Griffin's Crossing, that
Oh,
could easily go to an area that could be accessed, restored, and turned into a housing area as part of a bigger project. So there's Kawarthas Central. We got Kawarthas Western, but locked out. I think it was Kawarthas Southern, or maybe parts of one of those that ended up becoming Snowcloak, that Camp Glory area. And then, but there's still a bunch of areas that could branch off of Kawartha Central, and we could build there.
yeah, that could be the case, but I probably see it until a few patches later after Shadowbringers has settled down or some. But right now, I don't see it as a priority that the dev team should be focusing on to, because God forbid all the apocalypse that happens each time housing areas open, especially on Balmung.
Oh my
Right.
gosh, yeah.
So, and I'm gonna stoke the controversy a little bit here on this regard, but uh, if they do tie a housing area to this, they had mentioned that the in-game content for the Disciples of the Hand and Land will involve restoring Ishgard, and that it would probably be similar to the Doman reconstruction. I don't know if you guys have done that, but it's basically you turn in some items every week and you see a little bit of progress um, to the rebuilding of the Doman Enclave. And the thing about it though is the progress is made specifically to your own character. So it's going to be something that um, not everybody will necessarily have access to. Um, you know, as content in the game. And if they are tying the housing ward to it, that means that you won't be able to access that housing ward if you've not done this content. So that's currently my theory. And if that ends up being the case, I could see it kind of being like a way to sort of get like high-end crafters that own a lot of houses to sort of maybe consider giving up some of their land so that they can move to this prestigious Ishgard like housing area that only the highest end crafters will be able to have access to because it's going to be level 80 content. So what do you guys think of that idea?
I think the issue is, if you do that, can you even have a free company house? Would you leave it as apartments then that we can access, or would you actually have it as a housing area? It's an interesting idea by locking that content behind a quest series. Uh, but one of the things the developers have always tried to do is be fair and inclusive. And if they lock that kind of content out to the parts of the players that don't craft, can you imagine the screams from the raiding teams? Um, and especially if it can't be free company housing, if it's only private housing, that might be a bridge too far. What I was thinking is it would be something that is more like the 1.0. I forgot what the name of the content was, but it was like a fate, but it was for crafters and gatherers. You would have to gather Hamlet defense. There you go, Hamlet
Yes,
defense.
yes, yep, I remember. Mm-hmm.
And so the Hamlet events, just on a really huge scale, where the entire server has to work together to unlock it for the server. And then
Right.
once it's unlocked, it would be open for everybody. Of course, they would probably wait until the land rush might have a timer on it to prevent people from swarming in or moving in from other servers to buy houses. But I think that would be a more egalitarian way of doing it than just locking exclusively to the 80 end-game crafters and gatherers. And I say this as someone who I have all 70s. I craft and gather extensively, and I would be one of the ones who that content would cater to, but I still don't think it's fair to those who don't find joy in that content to lock them out of the housing completely.
Right. I could see that's one of the other possibilities is I don't know if you guys have ever played WoW, but um back at the end of Vanilla WoW where they were releasing the AQ raid. There was an event server wide where basically you just turned in materials to an NPC, and at the end of gathering all those materials, it finally unlocked the raid for the entire server. So, so that's a possibility as well. Like, you know, perhaps the crafters have to open it as like a part of a server-wide effort, and then once it's open for everyone. So, so that's a possibility too. So, and you know that would be interesting, but the thing that I find suspect is the fact that they mentioned there will be some sort of notoriety tied to this content. So I'm kind of wondering what that notoriety could possibly be if the reconstruction part at least is exclusive to yourself. I'm not sure how participating in that would make any sort of bragging rights for you, apart from perhaps like some glamour or titles like we did get in from the Doman Enclave. We got the merchants Howery, and then we also got a title for completing it.
Philanthropist, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I admit I cheated on the Doma stuff. When your NPC or your retainers bring back their long quest stuff, they bring back silver coins, and so I just go every week and like toss a handful of coins in the donation basket and I'm done.
I think it's the easiest way as well.
Right. I have to also confess that I took advantage of my free company submarines because they bring back some treasure. That's the only thing you can do with it is vendor it to an NPC, and it's like a single one usually is worth like 10K. So, you know, with the bonus from the Doman Enclave, it usually only took me like one of those tokens to hand in every week, and then I was done.
Well, I joke that the Doman Enclave was rebuilt primarily from Charlatan cabinets that we got from Eureka, and
Yeah.
because that's what I was doing at first. Is I'd open up my treasure chest and then vendor all my stuff to the donors. Like, here, have all these stupid cabinets that I can't fit in my house because I'd just be selling them anyway. And they were worth about 400 to 800 gil once you turn them in that way.
Yep. So yeah, I did a lot of that as well. I turned in a lot of junk materia from Eureka to the to the Doman Enclave. So so we do moving on here. We do have some new artwork shown for new glamours. There looks to be some crafting and gathering glamour here, as well as possibly some all job glamour. This one looks to be a male glamour. I don't know if you have this artwork pulled up, but it does look very almost like how to describe it, like I would say this would be the Garlean like fashion style. This sort of like professional, more like sort of modern clothing style. So I'll be interested to see a lot of the requests we get for glamour is for more modern looking clothes. So I think hopefully with the addition of being able to visit the Garlean Empire, and they're sort of like a more technologically advanced, more civilized empire, that we will get some more modern looking clothes. So in this one here sort of looks maybe in the range of like 20s or 30s style. So like 1920s, 1930s clothing style. So so we're kind of getting there. We're kind of moving up in the years a little bit, and I will be interested to see what kind of new outfits they come up with in 5.0.
It also looks like we're getting Balthier's outfit from 12. That was one of the things from the live letter that they showed off, and so I think that's probably going to be male exclusive as well. But I don't know. They might make it for women too. They tend to do that. It's like the girls' content says girl exclusive, but they'll give the guys close to everybody. I think
Yeah,
Snow was the exception for that.
yeah, that seems to be a thing. Like, there seems to be bias towards female clothing, like we discussed earlier. But I do believe at least for the Evilisian raid, like we got Vaughn's outfit, and I do believe that was for both genders. But however, it was locked to a specific um, class.
Yeah,
Like I think it was either striking or scouting. I don't really remember, but
it was striking.
yeah. So it was a class that I didn't even play, so I didn't even pick up that armor. I didn't pick up most of the Evilisian armor, to be honest, because it just wasn't to my taste. I don't know how you guys felt about it, but I haven't spent a whole lot of time in the 24-man raids this expansion. Have you guys collected the glamours or kind of avoided them?
I did actually. I've got pretty much the entire set from the first one, Robin Ostre, and I've been picking away at Rita Rana. I just hate that raid so much that I can't drag myself in there for the express purpose of glamours, and I'll only suffer through it if I roll into it through Alliance Roulette.
Yeah, that's kind of my feeling as well. Like I don't really care for 24-man
Yeah,
content in
I've
most
been
cases.
collecting glamours for quite a while from any raid, any dungeon that I can. I've always I had a few pieces that I enjoyed, but most of the time either I turned some of them in or I just left them in my retainers because after being around for so long in all the patches, then your gear starts accumulating to the point that you don't know what to keep anymore because of space.
Yeah, I had to make the decision that anything that came from a dungeon below level 51, I was just gonna have to turn in for seals. I just don't have the room for it, and it's something that I can go in and solo if I ever need to get it again, especially the dungeons that are under 50 that anybody who's level 70 could just go in and blow away in about 5 minutes. Some of the level 51s can't actually be soloed at 70. Lost City, Vam Depor comes to mind, and Stone Vigil Hard, but most of those actually, the 50 dungeons you can even solo as a level 70, so you can anything that was 51 plus I kept, and everything else I had to turn in for seals.
Yeah, there's some of the content you can solo from level 50. Um, I'm sure we'll be having an even easier time with that once we hit level 80, so that'll just become a non-issue, I think. Um, I also solo some of the content, like I soloed Sheep Extreme the other day because I was looking for like a winter glamour, and I managed to solo her and get a few of those diamond weapons. All right, so yeah, well, we should be getting quite a few glamours in the next expansion. We're going to move on to the next couple slides here. We're going to be getting the trust system from FF11. You guys familiar with that at all, or?
Yeah, I stuck around long enough to 11 to actually get to play with that, and I remember I think it was Kupipi was the best healer because she would prioritize getting paralyzed off you.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't stick around 11 long enough to actually do that, but my assumption was just that it was going to be like an NPC that basically just functions for the most part like your squadron NPCs do, and you can just use these guys to go through your main story or whatever. Um,
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Is it's and 11 didn't really have dungeons in the same sense that 14 does, and that it was not a theme park roller coaster type thing where you stand in line and then ride the ride. The dungeons were just open access at all times. So the trust system allowed you to break out up to I think it was up to 4 party members, and then you could also have your own personal NPC. I forgot what those guys were called. Um, but the battle chocobos basically replaced those guys. And the thing with the individual NPCs that you could add via trust is every one of them was programmed slightly differently. So you could build up a party based on the traits that you wanted your party to have, not just the classes, but there were like 4 or 5 different white mages or healers, and if you wanted the one that would prioritize healing you, then you would get that one. Or in the case, the one I mentioned, Kupipi, she was the one who prioritized status effect removal. So she was actually the best healer because she could take off stuff that you couldn't necessarily take off yourself. Well, you could perform self heals in any manner of ways in 11. And so you could actually build your party composition based on your own preferences with the NPCs and basically build your ideal party and yeah, the AI was kind of weird. Same thing with the squads. I don't actually like running with my squad. They're not fluid enough to feel like a real party to me. I'd much rather run content and risk getting people who don't know what they're doing. But I'm excited about the trust system. I think it's a good addition, and it will, especially with Blue Mage, allow someone who prefers to solo to not have to necessarily do a lot of open world content alone.
Yeah. So there's a couple things that I just wanted to bring up with these as well that I think a lot of people that hasn't really been touched on as far as discussions in Reddit and things like that. Well, I mean, the first one I think is obvious that I'll finally be able to collect all my waifus in the game. So hopefully I can get a Y'shtola and an Elise and a Nanamo and the sky's the limit. Hopefully I'm sure they'll only start out with a few, but hopefully they'll be adding in more as time goes on. I'm sure some of you ladies are looking forward to the Imeric Trust NPC.
No, I want Hien.
Hien, huh? Hien's your husbando. What about Magni? We got any Magni fans here?
No, I just want him to find his Nama.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's that, and then the probably more practical use of these guys will be it was mentioned that you could take them into your main scenario dungeons as you're leveling up in 5.0, which the first thing that came to my mind was, well, that's great because that means I'll be able to solo farm all the glamours and I won't have any competition. So that should be a little bit easier, and obviously hopefully the queue times will be a little bit shorter and things like that. So that should make at least leveling up to level 70 a little bit easier for everybody. Level 80, I should say. Okay, so the next slide we have here is the New Game Plus system, which not a lot of information was given about it, other than the fact that you'll be able to basically reset your quest progress and go through some of like the old quests that you maybe wanted to repeat, like the little mini games along the way and things like that. So I do believe it was mentioned, however, that you can't just pick and choose like where you want to reset to. Like you have to restart all the way from the beginning and just work your way back through, which isn't really ideal. But my hope is that you'll be able to at least get the experience points from those quests again, so it'll make leveling up alt jobs a little bit easier, and add another method for doing that. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but that's my hope. So I don't know if you guys think there might be some other implications to this or some other possible uses I'm not thinking of right now, like maybe for role-playing purposes or something like that.
I feel like, well, it's still something that I'm not familiar with, so I'm really curious about what will come of it. But like you said, for example, for role players, it might be a good thing because it will also give us a choice to like brush up on certain details or things that we missed or that we forgot about because we did them so long ago.
I'm kind of curious to what it's going to entail as well, because I've already got 4D alts, I've got also
Wow.
on every server.
Wait. Did
And
you say 40, like 40?
yeah, but most of them are level
Oh
1.
my god.
But no, I wanted to protect the brand name of 14 Fashion, so a couple years ago I locked down the name 14 Fashion on every single North American and European server. And I'm actually kind of unhappy about the fact that it looks like we're getting 2 new EU servers, because I might have to give up some of my Balmung alts if I want to add another 14 Fashion and reserve the name on those servers as well. It was a good idea, because I can tell people that if you bump into a 14 Fashion on your server, that is me. I can guarantee it, and I don't have to worry about someone going around pretending to be 14 Fashion and tarnishing my name. But I might have to start paying more money to Square Enix too.
Well, we're actually coming up on the world visit feature in the keynote, so we can go ahead and start talking about that a little bit as well. And now that you mentioned you have a character on every server, I'm wondering with this world visit system if that will even be necessary anymore, and maybe you could just delete some of those alts anyway.
I'd still want to protect the name, just because I don't want someone trying to troll other servers under my protected name. I'm actually really looking forward to it. I've got friends on a lot of servers, and it just, my friends from 11, my friends from real life, friends from other games, people I bump into who play on all sorts of different servers, and being able to go visit worlds that are on my same data center and hang out with them, I think it's going to be a big positive. I feel sorry for the raid groups who are getting broken up because they're having to add the 3rd data center, but the world visit, I think it's a good compromise, that we're going to have to take something away, but we're going to give something incredible to make up for it.
I know friends from Balmung that have really close friends on other servers, and all they can ever do is like meet up through Duty Finder every now and then when they have the chance. But now they can actually go and hang out inside a same area that's not a duty, and that's a good thing to look forward to. But it's also sad to see a few other people losing their friends and groups. Like in my case, I'm losing my entire raid team because of this change.
So they showed how the servers are going to be split up, and it basically seems that they're dividing up the data centers based on population to try to even out how many people are in each data center, to try to alleviate some of the issues that happened at the Stormblood launch. I'm sure you guys all recall the Raubon extreme shenanigans.
Yeah. From a data center standpoint, I can understand exactly what they're doing. The instance servers are capped at a certain number just from the physical hardware. I've kind of guesstimated that they've probably got about 128 gigabytes of random access memory per server, and so each instance server can only handle so many instances created in the virtual memory at any given time. And so by adding in the 3rd data center, they're immediately adding in 50% more instances that are going to be available at the next launch, and hopefully that will alleviate some of the stress from Raubon EX and some of the other server instability. I believe Yoshi P said the most live active characters you can have on any given server any given time is about 67,000, and after that it starts to get really gummed up, and from a programmatic standpoint, they're probably already the entire world, the open world, is live in the server RAM at any given time. And they previously said that they save the data from RAM to the database about every 15 seconds. So every time they add additional zones, they are adding more stress onto each of the world servers. And by moving some of the servers over to a 3rd data center, they're relieving the stress on the instance servers, but they're also relieving some of the pressure on the data center's world servers as well. And I think that's why they're going to be able to offer the travel from server to server, because they're all that hardware is already physically connected, because that's how we're able to transfer our characters from the server to the duty finder in the instances. they can already talk to each other. It was just a matter of figuring out a way for zone to zone to talk to each other. And so yeah, I think the stress on the servers is going to be greatly reduced with this launch, or at least I hope so. Everybody jokes about Square Enix having potato hardware, and at some point in my life, I actually was a very high-end server saleswoman. I was selling some really expensive blade servers. So no, I don't think Square Enix is running potato servers, but the limitation of the technology still exists. Just by the speed of light, there's only so much that they can do, and the third data
Yeah.
center is going to reduce the stress.
I think the
Even with
main,
state-of-the-art equipment.
the primary issue with a lot of their technical back-end stuff is just the fact when they were developing A Realm Reborn, they were in such a rush to get it completed that maybe some of the code that they developed at that time is probably, not ideal at this time. So,
Yeah.
and they're just dealing with the repercussions of trying to develop a completely new MMO from scratch in a matter of, I think they did it in 2 years, which is really like unheard of, honestly. Like most MMOs, I think take probably like 5 years to develop. So, yeah, that and when we're just dealing with the consequences of that, but it does, they do seem to be working with that as much as they possibly can to improve things. And this world visit system does seem pretty interesting. But I do want to touch briefly on one of the implications that seems to be happening with the community is the idea of data center labeling, where it appears that, like we said, it seems their motivation is primarily based on population numbers, and so as a result, the highest population servers from the Ether data center were moved over to Crystal, and those just so happen to be Balmung and Mateus, which are known amongst the community to be role-playing servers. So as a result of that, a lot of people are now calling Crystal the role-playing data center, and also labeling Ether as the rating data center. So you may start to see people maybe thinking about wanting to move servers because of those labels. And I'm wondering if you think that's really going to have as big of an impact as what people seem to be thinking at the moment.
It's okay. We could make Primal the Glamour data center.
So, I mean, like you guys mentioned, you're on Balmung, you have characters there. So I'm wondering if you're starting to see people saying, like in chat or whatever, that they are going to leave, or how that's impacting their decision that they're being moved to a different data center.
Well, that would always be a given, especially on Balmung. Like, I'm the kind of person that usually stays away from shout chat or from any random conversation that comes out in different areas, but you can always see people that are ranting about things, I'm moving away, or hello, I'm new. So even if this whole change with the Crystal data center and the Ether data center are happening, I don't think Balmung is changing too much when compared to how it usually is on an everyday basis to begin with.
What I'm hoping to see with Balmung is some of the people who didn't want to leave the server because that's where all their friends were, but did want a house, might be willing to transition to one of the lower population servers that's getting moved to that new data center. And so they'll be able to get their house, and then they'll be able to go back to Balmung and hang out with their friends again. So I think that was Square Enix's hope with this particular feature, the world visit, was that people who didn't want to leave their server for other stuff that they wanted would get the best of both worlds. Now I can have a house over here on this, Zalera or whatever server is getting moved over there that doesn't have a high population, so I can get my dream house finally, but I can just go back to Balmung anytime and go hang out with my free company that my friends that are over there still. I'm probably not going to move any of my role-playing characters off because none of them have houses and none of them need houses. They're all little one-shot fun characters that don't have any completionist. My home server is Lamia, and I've got our free company as a mansion. I've got my personal mid-sized house. I've got an apartment. I've got all sorts of things, and then I've got access to half a dozen houses that everybody else in my free company has built up over the years. 2 of my free company members have personal mansions because that's how low population Lamia generally has been. So on Balmung, I'm probably going to stick around, but I could actually see some of the other folks finally going to other lower population servers and relieving some of the pressure on Balmung.
Yeah, I do generally view Balmung as kind of a split community. Like, while on one hand there's the role players, and that's a big part of the community there and why people go there, there's also the person that just goes there because they want to be on a high population server that, you know, there's always a lot of people around, a lot of, you know, discussions happening, a lot of, you know, the raid scene's active, the party finder scene is active. And I think now with how they're splitting up the data centers, that you may start to see some of those people that that just wanted to be on a high population server. They may end up changing what server they're actually on because of this world visit system that that may not necessarily impact their decisions anymore, because they can just hop over to whatever server they want to, you know what I mean, and not worry about not having people to play with.
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the other things that this is really going to help is since we'll be able to purchase goods from the other worlds, one of the biggest problems, Lamia got a reputation as the crafting server. And so our economy is so top heavy and so out of whack. Basic items that should only cost, like on Balmung, lower end items that only cost 200 or 300 gil cost thousands of gil, sometimes tens of thousands of gil in Lamia. Sometimes I'll go through and craft items and just deliberately post them at a slightly more reasonable price to help out the new players who are coming to our server, because we sometimes get preferred world status trying to encourage new players, and they can't afford the gear off the market boards because it's so overpriced. And I think that being able to visit other worlds and buy cheaper goods, and in the case of Lamia, buy crafting ingredients that are almost always out of stock because they're all crafting obsessed. I think that is one of the greatest things they're going to add. You can't sell anything on those, but you have access to you know, half a dozen other worlds to buy things. That's fantastic.
Right. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there's already been websites popping up that will allow you to view the prices on the market of other servers. So it'll make your shopping a little bit easier, because you can just go to a website and view all the prices on every server, rather than having to actually physically go there and figure it out yourself. So you can just do all your shopping on this website, and then find the lowest price, and then just hop over to that server and make your purchase. So I do think, especially with those kind of things popping up, that the prices will actually even out. And that's, you know, I view that as a good thing. So I'm looking forward to see how that pans out as well. So if there's nothing else you guys want to comment on the keynote, I believe we're going to move over to the live letter at this point. So let me bring that up real quick. So, you know, just quickly going to go through some of these slides. You know, so it's coming in January 2019, as we mentioned earlier, not too far off. And so let's see, the first thing we come to is the main scenario. We're leading into the 5.0 storyline. we're going to get the Four Lords finale finally, and some more Hildebrand quests. We already mentioned Blue Mage will be added in 4.5. The new dungeon will be added, the Gimlet Dark. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but they actually mentioned, I believe, in the live letter that this dungeon was the part of the dungeon that was shown in the trailer. I believe it's the part where you're fighting against Xenos.
Yeah.
So that should be an interesting story there, because at this point, it's not technically Xenos that we'd be fighting. It would actually be Elidibus himself, which I don't think we've ever experienced what it's like to fight him. So that, I think, should be an interesting fight.
Yeah, definitely. Elidibus is such an interesting character. He's always been kind of, is he really not, is he really on the opposite side? Is he, or is he actually kind of secretly trying to help us? His relationship with Urianger, I don't want to say they're friends, but they almost have a like colleagues almost. Way of interacting with each other. Urianger hasn't really played that much of a role in the last couple of expansions, and I'm hoping that with the Warriors of Darkness coming back, we'll get to find out more of his relationship with Elidibus and who exactly is Elidibus working for. Is it Zodiark? Is it something else? What's going on?
Yeah, and another thing that was always interesting is that he's got the white coat on, and like, so what symbolism is that necessarily representing? Because we're seeing a lot of like metaphorical representations, the whole battle of light and dark, and the balance of those two, and so I always just thought it was interesting that he had a white coat on as the leader of the Asians, representing the dark side of things with Zodiark. So hopefully we'll get some more information on that in the expansion to come. So they also mentioned the new Alliance raid will be finishing up the Return to Evil East series and the Orban Monastery. I guess that's a tactics area. I don't. It's been a long time. I actually never played Tactics. I played Tactics Advanced on the Game Boy Advance a long time ago. But so this was an area that I wasn't personally familiar with, but I guess there's some sort of significance there. I don't know.
I've
Maybe
actually
you guys
got
are more familiar with it. Go ahead.
I've got the Tactics soundtrack, the original Tactics. I think it was some of the finest music produced in the entire Final Fantasy series, just from a whole cloth soundtrack perspective. And the very first song that comes up is I believe from that monastery. It's just called A Monastery is the name of the track, but I've already got that music running through my head, so I'm hoping that that's going to be the background music to the new raid.
All right. So I'll be looking out for that. And then so they showed the Balthier glamour here that we'll be getting from that. It appears that he's using a machinist weapon here, so I'm guessing that means the Balthier glamour will be for machinists and bards only. Hopefully, I don't know if you guys care for this Balthier outfit. I know a lot of people probably do, so maybe they'll be taking their bards and machinists in for that. But I'm actually hoping that some other 11 glamours will also make an appearance, because as I mentioned before, I haven't really been a fan of the glamours that have been on offer so far. I'm personally hoping that Fran will show up and possibly will get her outfit as well.
I think everybody wants Fran's outfit. You're right.
Yeah.
I was actually really happy with that. The Omega gear, some of that has that kind of cut out look. Especially with the plate mail, they generally tend to focus on big chunky pieces of metal over little itty bitty support straps. And I would like more things that are just the support strappy parts. And Fran's outfit is a perfect example of that, where it's got like token modesty, but her armor is really just functional. She can move freely in it. It protects her most vital bits. But of course, the accidental result of that is it's a very sexy glamour. But it's very practical. She's comfortable in her armor, and it protects the parts that it has to protect without inhibiting any of her other motions. I really like long full skirts, but I really want more mid-length skirts. I'm hoping that some of the outfits that they introduce in the next expansion, we get some more of those T-length or mid-length skirts, or mini skirts are nice, but one of the things I'm always conscious of whenever I'm building out a glamour is what color are my panties, because those are going to flash in battle, and I generally avoid certain pieces of gear because people are going to see my panties, and they're white, and I don't like that. So I hope that's something that they take into consideration if they do give us any more mini skirts. Is please let those dye to match the rest of the skirt, so we're not flashing the world.
I'm sure that would make an excellent post on the official forums. I think you should go and
No panty
request that
shots allowed.
feature. Just the fact that I should be able to dye all panties, that would be a great thread. So all right, so yeah, I mean, like I'm hoping for some different glamours. The Balthier one is nice, but again, it looks like it's going to be for bards and machinists only. So I don't have a bard or machinist leveled, so I won't be getting this glamour either.
Chop chop.
So like I said, Fran would be a nice one. I'd also like to see a Shelia's outfit as well. She's the main female protagonist from Final Fantasy 12, so I like her whole aesthetic she has there.
As long as we can dye the panties on that mini.
Right, duly noted. So all right, so we're gonna move on from this conversation. So the next thing they showed was the reward you'll be getting from if you happen to get all of the dogs, all the doggos. You'll get a Ninetales QB. So that's interesting. I don't know if you guys have any dogs. I have exactly 0. So I don't know. I tend to finally collect all the primal mounts like after the expansion is done, because then I can just go in and unsync it, and you already have the option to buy everything with tokens, and usually the drop rates have been increased to the point where it's actually not like crazy to farm them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, same here. I didn't get I've only got 2 birds so far. I need to seriously buckle down and get the rest of those. But I didn't get my primal ponies and Kieran until actually just last year.
Yeah. But yeah, this does look like a pretty nice amount, so I'll probably be going after those dogs once 5.0 comes out. Typically when the expansion first comes out, if you're not somebody that does savage raids, like typically that's the period where there's kind of a slowdown in content. So that's typically where I go to farm primals and get my primal mounts. So that's probably what I'll be doing there. Anyways, moving on here. We have some more artwork of the Orban Monastery. Our final 4 lords is going to be Siryu. So the question there is, where's Koryu? How's he going to play into this? And a lot of people are thinking now it's probably just going to be a solo trial where, you just kind of team up with the other 4 lords and take on Koryu in a solo instance. So I don't know. What do you guys think of that?
That could be a possibility, because I hadn't thought too deeply about it, but I did see like I think we're missing one. It cannot be Siryu right now. Maybe it will have something to do with Sorovan, but I'm not sure yet. I haven't speculated too much about it.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I have the image of the actual arena pulled up right here. It does look to be a pretty nice looking arena. So I'm hoping that maybe they'll add the option to use the duty recorder there, so you can, um, take some screenshots and stuff and get some cool battle pictures in there. Because it does look to be a nice instance, and Suryu himself should also be pretty interesting model, I think, because he's supposed to be a dragon, if I recall. So
Yeah, the name of the trial is the Wreath of Snakes.
yeah, so it'll be interesting. But yeah, it definitely looks like a nice area. There's like a lot of greenery, and there's like a waterfall with some nice lighting. So that should be a nice screenshot area, I would think. So, um, anyways, the next thing is Eureka. So, have you guys done Eureka at all, or are you kind of skipping that?
I got so burned out on Aminos, I haven't even set foot in Pagos yet. It's on my to-do list. But I
Oh,
farmed every weapon in Aminos, and then I'm like, I'm gonna take a break from this for a while because I think I'm like elemental level 23 just from farming all of that. So I'm ready to go in Pagos anytime I work up the will. But
Yeah, it is pretty taxing to do that content. Sadly, it's like the worst part of FF11. I don't know, like just the
the grind.
the leveling grind. Yeah. So, but they do have some artwork here, and it does look to be a pretty interesting looking zone, the final one. So I'm looking forward to that. I do have my Pyros weapon completed, but I don't have like the stats on it yet. Like I think I have like 3 or 4 lines on that weapon, but in the end, it doesn't really matter because all relics end up being glamour in the end anyway. So that's my main um, motivation for doing that, just getting the glamour. So, and I only have one weapon. I'd like to get my Dark Knight weapon as well, but um, haven't had the. I can't bring myself to go back and do all of Pagos again. it's it's so like grindy. It's
yeah.
maybe I'll do it like if they nerf it some more or something, but for right now I'm just sticking to one weapon.
Farmed as much as I could during the Nemos. I technically lived there for a while, but when Pagos came out, I'm pretty sure many people were burnt out, like myself and Kat. So I stepped foot only a couple of times in there, and after seeing that not many people are doing Notorious Monster trains, then I just stopped.
Yeah, one thing I'm gonna try to do is since they added the weekly challenge log, I'm gonna try to make myself go in at least once a week and knock out some of that because that's uh, I think the weekly challenge log it's something that I do on a regular basis. I try to knock out as many of those things as possible just because that is a great way to force yourself to accumulate the really long-term titles. As I mentioned, I do the achievement rat race, and I can't stand the thought of not going in and doing that challenge log and just leaving all that XP on the table.
Right, right. That's how a lot of my friends have been doing it as well, just going in every week and doing the challenge log and then leaving. And you can actually level up at a fairly decent pace doing that. I think for each tier, if you do the challenge log every week, it usually takes like 3 weeks to be max level in a zone. So, I mean, if you just do that, you'll probably still manage to get your weapon done by the end of the expansion. So I would probably recommend doing that if you're somebody that's fallen behind. So, and I do honestly expect them to probably nerf it some more before everything is said and done. So,
I think that's the other thing I'm kind of waiting for is the final nerfs.
well, we've got some hot fixes this week, so cross your fingers for something there.
Please make it easier.
And then we have some PvP stuff here. I don't know if you guys care about PvP. I don't really do a lot of PvP.
Just the clams.
Right. I go in.
Pretty much.
I get my wolf marks and get out of PvP. So I did get the hairstyle. They started doing that, so that's kind of annoying. They started putting hairstyles and stuff in PvP. I think they've started to realize that the only way you're going to get people to do PvP is to start putting like fashion stuff in there, because that's what people really want. You know, they're all about the glamours. So
The real end game.
Yep.
it really is, and I think Square Enix is starting to understand that. It's not all about savage rating all the time, you know. And actually, the majority of the community is probably cares more about like this kind of fashion stuff. So yeah. I think we're only going to see more of that happening, more hairstyles and more glamours in PvP, sadly. So then we have some gold saucer stuff here. They mentioned new content was added, but they didn't say what it was. So I wonder if you guys just want to speculate a bit. What do you think it is?
Think they might do more with Fashion Report. They right now it's just basically just farming massive amounts of MGP. I've actually been able to. I bought the Cloud Strife triple triad card the other day because I had a million MGP stored up. Thanks, Fashion Report. I think they might do some more with that. I noticed they snuck a couple more items into Casami's boutique, so you can get the small clothes scattered on the ground. It was probably in the last patch, and
You can dye those panties, by the way.
if you can. This is important. Match the aesthetic of my boudoir.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, honestly, I kind of think it's going to be Blitzball because that's something they've mentioned multiple times that they were thinking about doing, and it's, you know, something that people thought they were going to have in Stormblood because of the addition of swimming. So you know, it's been a long time coming, but I think that's finally probably what we're going to get here. The only question is what form it will actually take. So I don't know if did you guys do Blitzball at all? Did you play Final Fantasy X? You know anything about it?
Played that until I got the stupid Jupiter sigil.
Right. So that again, that's what it was all about. The getting that special glam there, the relic weapon or whatever.
Yep.
So that, I mean, I think if they do come out with Blitzball, it'll probably be like I don't think it's going to be you control the characters. I think it'll be like a recruiting mini game where you just go out and recruit NPCs, and then they'll probably have like stats, and they can go against each other in matches and then see who's going to win based on their stats or whatever. Kind of like probably
Kind of like the
similar,
squads.
right? Kind of similar to the squadrons, exactly. So and then hopefully it'll just be a thing you can do every week and get some MGP out of it. So and maybe some glamours as well. But again, who knows? That's all speculation. We don't know what we're actually getting. The thing they did mention was the Air Force One minigame, which is basically like a bullet hell side-scrolling shooter when you're piloting an Air Force mount from 07, I believe it was. So so that might be interesting, just as a fun thing to do when you're bored. And then they just touched on the world visit system again. Some of the restrictions, I think we went over some of them. Like you can buy things off the market, but you can't sell anything. So that should help even out the economy a little bit. You can't purchase houses. You can't form free companies. You can't have link shells, but you can have cross-world link shells. So I think those will probably start to be utilized a little bit more, especially for hunts. I don't know if you guys do hunts, but I think that's going to be a big thing with cross server world visits is going across servers to kill hunts. So
Oh my gosh, never-ending hunts.
mm,
Oh no. Yeah,
so
we have regular hunt trains server. We have one player, Zerida, I think her name is, who organizes them, and it's really awesome that she actually goes out and finds all the hunts and then organizes a train, so it's just knocked out in 30 minutes. It's wonderful. Um, but I don't want to do it on more than one server. That's enough.
yeah, I
Or
think.
something that would, yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, something that would probably hinder the hype of going between servers for that is that uh, link shells are not available when you visit other servers. Only the cross-world link shells, I understand, are the ones that are not going to be affected.
Right. So my thought was specifically for hunts, people will start to form cross-world link shells, and then all the calls will be in your cross-world link shell. So if a hunt shows up on a specific server, everybody will just hop over to that server, kill it, and then move on to the next one.
Hopefully that will be a thing because right now there's only one cross-world link shell that everyone can have, like only one.
Yeah. So hopefully, that'll be the one people have is the hunt cross-world link shell.
Or they may add support for multiple ones if they as part of this. That would be,
Yeah.
I think, the best case scenario is if we can give us up to 8 local link shells and up to 8 cross-world link shells. Because I'll admit 6 out of my 8 local link shells are shells.
Yeah, so I do think if they don't have more at launch, that'll start to become a requested feature, and it'll probably happen at some point later down the line. So, let's see what else here. You can't attend an eternal bonding ceremony, so that's kind of a bummer right there.
Yeah,
Because
that's the kind of thing though. It may not be available immediately on launch, because this is all coming out in 4.5, but that's the kind of thing that they might be able to add like 5.0 or at a later date, because they are using the agile software methodology where they'll introduce the basic functionality of something and then improve upon it. I mean, just look what we saw with GPOs, where it was just one little thing and then they added the filters, and it's just grown and grown and grown because that's how modern software development is done. And it'll probably be the same way with this cross world, where if that's what people are demanding the most, they want to go to their friend's wedding on another server. Right now the only thing you do is make an alt
right,
on that server. And of course that's always something you can continue to do, is have your alt clones. Cycle 10 Cast actually had a meetup on my server, on Lamia's server, because that's where the second place winner was from, Rim. And because Balmung was unavailable since Halo won, we all decided to go to the second place winner server, which happened to be my server too. So I think the level 1 alts for visiting are still an option, but if everybody wants to be able to go to weddings, that'll probably be the next thing that they consider adding. It's probably just the invitations, since you wouldn't be able to trade invitations or send them through Mogmail. How would you get that to other people? So
yeah,
it's a conundrum.
right, yeah. There's a few things like that I think are going to end up being changed. That's going to be one of them. The other thing I think is probably going to be changed is as far as initial launch is the whole blue mage can't do deep dungeon thing, because I think a lot of people are going to want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that probably is just a restriction of level cap, because you do need to be level 60 to do the highest level in deep dungeon. So I think as they add higher levels, that you'll probably be able to do that at some point. Just quickly going through some of these other slides here. I think we've touched on most of the information at this point. All right, so the last thing I really want to talk about that I don't think we spent too much time on is the whole concept of the limited jobs that they've added. The first one is going to be Blue Mage, and basically what that means is it's a job that kind of exists outside of the norm for Final Fantasy XIV. It doesn't fit really into a party setup, and it's going to be level capped at a lower level, so you're not going to be able to do any end game with it. But with that, it opens up the way for like maybe something more interesting as a standalone content. So, so I was wondering if what do you guys think of this whole limited job concept? Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think they should continue to do it, or do you think this is a mistake and they're ruining Blue Mage and they are going to ruin any other job that they try to do it with?
I think it's gonna be like an interesting experiment because right now we don't know what's going to happen to us once Blue Mage comes out, but it pretty much feels like it's one going to satisfy part of the huge demand that people had for Blue Mage because right after it was announced, some people even brought up a few quotes from 2014 interviews with the devs where they had already mentioned a concept like this for Blue Mage or any other class. So right now I feel like it's gonna be a sort of a new play style for people to enjoy instead of the usual grind of, oh, I got this class to 70, 80, now I gotta do it with this other class, then with the next one, then with the next one. But Blue Mage is gonna be like a small breath of fresh air for us to experiment with, to see how we like it, to see how we enjoy it, even if it's not within the normal kinds of duties that we do. And then from then on, we can then probably forge an opinion whether it was a good idea or not. And probably the devs will also know and maybe implement a new class as well, or just leave it as it was.
Yeah, and I keep bringing this up too, but I think more and more Square Enix is realizing that the raiding community is actually a minority of the community, and so the fact that this is a job that you won't be able to raid with, I think is something that they're trying based on that realization that not really that many people raid, so we need to give more content for the non-raiders, and I think this is something that will really appeal to the people that they just want to play by themselves, or they need something to do to motivate themselves other than savage raiding. You know what I mean? So
I think the Blue Mage and by extension any other limited jobs that they add is also a way of breaking out of the Holy Trinity finally. One of the complaints with 14 was that you're locked into the roles based on the duty finder, based on rating, and party composition can't really deviate too much from that. Blue Mage is something that it has the capability of being anything, depending on how you want to play it. Do you want to play it as a tank? We'll use tanking defensive abilities. Do you want to play it as a healer? Well, use your healing spells. In 11, Blue Mage was just like Red Mage. It was a jack of all trades. It was also a really good DPS, but it was also a great backup healer. It was a great backup tank. And I think the limited jobs are another way of getting around that. Instead of, and then by keeping them out of duty finder, you don't have to worry about, well, they want to play as a healer, but they had to roll as a DPS. If you pre-build, from what I understand, if you pre-build your parties, you can go in. So you can have a party of 4 blue mages go into a dungeon and level together and learn whatever content and or learn whatever abilities those monsters would drop. So we will probably see the rise of blue mage leveling parties. And I think that limited job concept is going to bring back some of the sense of community that everybody reminisces about 11. You had to form parties there. There was no duty finder. And the limited jobs are going to open up that kind of flexibility as well as force us to party up if we want to play the way we want to play.
all right, and I think also one of the most exciting things about the whole limited job concept is, as you were saying, it doesn't require you to um, basically fit the mold of tank healer DPS, and you can go outside of that and do interesting things. Like, one of the other possibilities they mentioned for the limited jobs would be Beast Master and Puppet Master, and so I think that that means that we will be able to go out there and tame all the monsters and sort of catch them all. You know what I mean? And that's in a raid setting. They would have to limit that. They would have to basically probably turn all the monsters in the world into essentially summoner eggies, where there's like maybe 3 different types, and they all kind of do the same thing, and they're just glamours, and I don't think that's very interesting, So I do think that having that be kind of like its own thing really just it sort of just takes all of the restrictions off of what they can design for a job, and it really gives them more freedom to kind of make um, the jobs have interesting mechanics that they probably would have to eliminate otherwise in order to fit that mold. So I'm looking forward to see future limited jobs as well. So, and I do think this concept is something that um, hopefully they'll do a good job with it and continue with it into the future. So, but we'll have to see how Blue Mage pans out. So, so if there's anything else you guys want to comment on before we do our closing remarks here.
If anything, probably would be that to all those people maybe considering that their screenshots are not good enough, or should they go into ENTM or not, or just share their work in general. Just don't be scared to do it. Practice makes perfect. You'll get it within time, and soon you'll see that there's a lot of improvement that you will make as long as you are fine with making mistakes and accepting that the where you could fall short and where you could be stronger. Just be more confident in yourself.
And I'd like to put out a plug for our monthly challenges. This is the only contest that ENTM runs where we actually do offer a prize. I've been offering basically $5 off the Mog Station for a minion or any equivalent priced item. But the monthly mini challenge is a single screenshot. You have 3 weeks from the beginning of the month to do that screenshot, and then there's a week of voting, and it's all community voting. And unlike the regular cycles, there's no auditions. You don't have to have ever entered ENTM before. You can just submit. And the other fun thing about the monthly challenge is the other prize, besides getting something off the Mog Station, is you get to pick the next month's theme. So every single theme that we've done since last spring for the monthly mini challenge has been chosen by the community, chosen by the winner. And this month in November, it was the entire poem The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe was the theme. So we had some really wonderful entries where people were inspired by that poem to take a screenshot of Lenore, or we had somebody actually on a bird. It was such a great idea. And I'm going to ask, if you have not taken a look at those shots, come to our Discord channel or look at the Tumblr where we posted it, and please vote. Vote for the winner, because that is decided entirely by community votes, and your vote does have an impact.
Right. So, and you can check that out on the ENTM Tumblr. Is that correct?
Correct. So I had to actually change the Tumblr URL because it was yours next top model. And let me actually get the new thing. I think I changed it to yours as NTM to match my Gmail. Let's double check. I have an entire Google profile just for ENTM to keep it separate from my personal social media and not get confused. It is, yes, it's yours is ntm.tumblr.com.
And so that's the ENTM Tumblr, and then you also have the XIV Fashion Tumblr as well.
Yes, and that's my personal blog.
Okay. And Hyla, I understand you have your own Tumblr account as well, so people can follow you there. If you
Yeah, I
guys,
have right now a main Tumblr, which is under my same name as my in-game character. But I also opened a separate one shortly after winning, in which I've been posting all the screenshots that I've made before ENTM, during ENTM, and now after ENTM for people to look at if they wish to do so.
awesome. And then I also have my Tumblr account as well that I sometimes post things on if I feel so inclined. And I also have just my Discord tag on the overlay that you can, if you want to message me about, podcast ideas, if you want to be on the show, whatever, send me a message on Discord and I will definitely consider it. And so, yeah, so we're pretty much going to wrap up the show here, guys. It was a pleasure getting to talk to you guys, Katarh and Haila. It was definitely an interesting conversation. Um, so, and I look forward to future conversations with future guests. So, like I said, if you want to be on the show, just hit me up on Discord. And if you have an idea for the show, that's the place to let me know. So I think that's gonna be it, guys. I think we finally made it. It's only been like 3.5 hours. So
Yeah.
We're a
so
chatty bunch.
you guys are real troopers there. So I do appreciate it. Appreciate your time. So
Well, thank you for inviting me, and I had fun.
all right, guys. So that's gonna be it. So let's
Yeah, thank you for having us.
just we're gonna say bye to everybody and we'll see you guys next time in the next Glamour Prism podcast.
Goodbye,
So
everybody. Vote for me
bye.
when YouTube 3 does its
Bye.
bring back cycle. Bye bye.
Bye bye, everybody.